Chapter 11:26. It seems that this woman is really scary. Whoever dares to provoke her will not have a good ending. Shui Mingjuan's view of Lin Xiao has reached a new height. On the other side, in a mountain forest in the northwest, Lan Lu hid on the edge of a cliff, watching a tall man standing on the mountain bank from afar. The man looked at the bottom of the cliff expressionlessly. If it wasn't for the energy storm surrounding him, crushing the trees and stones within a radius of 20 to 30 meters, one would have thought that he was normal. In addition to Lan Lu and the man on the edge of the cliff, there was also a level 8 mutant beast hiding not far away. In addition, there were several groups of people a little further away, surrounding and observing the man's situation from several directions. The level 8 mutant beast was a grassland wolf, and it was a wolf king. Around it was a pack of hundreds of mutant wolves, pairs of sharp wolf eyes staring at the man on the edge of the cliff. The wolf king was pure black, its whole body smooth and soft, slightly fluffy long hair dancing in the wind, reflecting a burst of black light under the illumination of the sun. Its 2 ears stood straight up, and the hair on its tail even drooped to the ground. It had a strong body, thick limbs. Its claws flashed with a sharp light. Standing there, it was nearly 2 meters tall, and its body length including its tail was at least 7 or 8 meters. A pair of sharp but unusually calm wolf eyes quietly looked in the direction of the man on the edge of the cliff. Under his calm gaze, however, waves of desire and desire were faintly discernible. It was a pair of eyes that thirsted for energy. Obviously, it wanted the energy crystal of this level 9 ability user very much. Lan Lu looked at the man with a headache, then looked at the Black Wolf King, and then looked at the people from the Huaxia base in the distance. His leader's situation was getting worse and worse. The energy had long been almost exhausted, and the destructive power had long been reduced. Even if his leader was a strength type, and his physical strength was 10 times stronger than ordinary ability users, he would not be able to withstand the continuous attacks of a level 6 or 7 ability user. Moreover, Huaxia had brought a lot of powerful small artillery shells. Although these rocket launchers could only be used once, their power was comparable to the attack power of a level 8 ability user. On one side was a level 8 and the mutant Wolf King, and on the other side was a level 8 ability weapon. Lan Lu could only withstand one side, and the other side would not be able to withstand it. So now, both sides were waiting for an opportunity to attack their leaders. Fortunately, the Wolf King was also very cautious. He seemed to be very afraid of the Blue Continent and the people sent by China. The people of Huaxia were also afraid of the Wolf King and the Blue Land. So now, Lan Lu was praying in his heart that neither side would suddenly attack. Otherwise, he could only defend against one side, and it would be hard to defend against the other. Suddenly, Lan Lu's expression changed, and he glanced behind him. Not long after, Chang Qingqing came over. "I've sent a message to the leader of the Universal Base. She's not far from here. If she can hurry up, she should be able to get here in less than 10 hours. Chang Qingqing immediately looked at him and said after she arrived in front of him. He then turned to look at the cliff and sighed. "The leader's energy storm has weakened again. I hope he can hold on for a little longer." Lan Lu's eyes darkened as he said, "So what if I persevere to the end? If we can't dispel his berserk state when he runs out of energy, his energy core will probably explode." Chang Qingqing's expression darkened as she looked at him and asked, "Will it really explode?" Lan Lu said with a heavy expression, "His berserk state is also caused by some kind of energy. In order to resist this energy, his energy will activate its protective state and rush out. But when the leader's energy runs out, he won't have the energy to resist that energy. What do you think will happen?" Chang Qingqing became silent and didn't say anything. After a while, she asked helplessly, "Then what should we do?" Lan Lu sighed and said, "So we can only wait for Miss Lu to come over. Maybe she has a way. Didn't you say that Wu Changyue also went berserk before? This time we'll ask her for help. Maybe she can really help us." Chang Qingqing thought about it and said, "Ask her again? We've already asked her to help us once. This way we owe her more and more. When will we be able to pay it back?" Whether it was the matter of sending the zombies from their base to the Universal Base, or Lan Lu accidentally revealing the identity of the leader zombie, it was all because they owed him. Until now, they still hadn't had the chance to pay it back. There was no other way. That woman was also very strong. Moreover, even when they needed help, Wu Chengyue from Sea City would be the first to help them. They were thousands of miles away, and by the time they got the news, the problem had already been solved. Don't worry, there will be a chance. Her identity can't be hidden forever. If one day her zombie identity and the zombie army in her base are discovered, she will need us to stand on her side. She will need us to stand on her side, Lan Lu said with a smile after thinking about it. Chong Qingqing glanced at him expressionlessly and said, "What's the use of standing on her side? You don't have weapons and you don't have manpower." Lan Lu said to her with a bitter smile, "What? I'm a level 8 psychic. Just me alone is already very important. Don't look down on me." Chong Qingqing rolled her eyes at him, then looked at the Wolf King and said, "This black wolf is really patient. It's been so long and it's still so calm." Lan Lu glanced at her with dissatisfaction. "Wolves are animals that are very patient with their prey. This is normal. Okay? Don't tell me that you wanted to attack our leader quickly with your words. Why can't you think of something better?" "I'm just making preparations, in case I can't react in time," Chong Qingqing replied indifferently to his complaints. While Lan Lu was relieved because of the news of Lin Xiao's arrival, the people from Huaxia were a little uneasy when they heard the news. "What? That woman is almost here. Why did she come to Qingshan base in the northwest? Even if Lan Lu sent someone to ask for her help now, she shouldn't be here so soon." Ho Guozhong's expression changed when he received the news that Lin Xiao was less than 400 kilometers away, and then he said with some surprise. Wei Haichao thought for a moment and said, "Maybe she received the news about the level 9 psychic long ago, so she came when the level 9 psychic's energy was almost used up. Looks like she's also here for the class 9 energy crystal core." After all, the temptation of a level 9 energy crystal was irresistible. Not to mention that woman's ambition wasn't small. Chapter 11:27. A woman was able to raise her arcana to level 7 and build a safe base. So in order to keep her base safe, she had to be very strong. If she could get her hands on this level 9 arcana core, she might become the 4th level 8 arcanist in the country. With a level 8 arcanist overseeing the base, and the woman's close relationship with Wu Chengyue from Haiqing, if the two worked together, their overall strength would not be any worse than China's. At that time, there would definitely be a lot of survivors who would join the currently sparsely populated universal base. With people came power, and with power came power. If China did not have 2 million survivors and countless talents, how could it become the number 1 base in the country? If she is really here for the level 9 energy core, then we must stop her before the leader arrives. Wei Haichao felt the situation was getting more urgent. Ho Guozhong thought about it but shook his head. It's hard to say if she is here for the level 9 energy core. After all, she seems to have a good relationship with Qingshan base's Blue Land. I think it's more likely that she is here to help. Wei Haichao heard this and thought about Lin Xiao's strength. That woman was only level 7 now, if she was not here to pick up scraps but to help. With her level 7 strength, it seemed that she would not be of much help. After all, the Wolf King was a level 8 mutant beast, while they had 2 level 7 arcanists and powerful weapons on their side. She was only a level 7 arcanist. She would not be able to take on either side. Did she really overestimate herself and come over to help the Blue Land? Isn't she too stupid? If you say she is here to help, I think she is here to die. If she can bring Wu Chengyue with her, then it'll be fine. Ho Guozhong suddenly paused. She came here on her own, right? Could she have brought Wu Chengyue with her? Wei Haichao nodded. She brought people here on her own. Wu Chengyue is in Haiqing now. He is keeping an eye on our base and probably does not have the energy to care about this woman. Ho Guozhong breathed a sigh of relief. That's good. Just as the people from Huaxia and Qingshan base were making their own plans, the originally quiet Black Wolf King suddenly turned its head, and its originally calm eyes suddenly burst with a sharp glint. It lowered its head slightly and narrowed its eyes. He let out a low roar from his throat towards the direction behind him. Whoa! It seemed to be warning something. The Black Wolf King's actions immediately attracted the attention of Lan Lu, Hou Guozhong, and the others. They immediately focused their attention in that direction. As soon as he noticed this, he immediately felt that things weren't too good. A powerful and violent aura was faintly discernible coming from far behind the Black Wolf King. The aura came from a very far distance. However, the pressure contained in this aura was almost on the same level as that of the Black Wolf King. Lan Lu, Chang Qingqing, Hou Guozhong, and Wei Haichao were all shocked. Could it be that another level 8 guy had come? Apart from Lan Lu, only Xikong Chan and Wu Changyue were rank 8 metahumans. If the chances of those two appearing were not high, then the beast that appeared must be another rank 8 mutated beast. After all, the evolution of mutant beasts was not slow anymore. And looking at the fearful look on Black Wolf's face, it was obvious that he knew that fella in the distance. Not good. It might be another rank 8 mutated beast, and it even knows the Wolf King. There's probably a grudge. I reckon that if it's not for the leader, then it's for the Black Wolf King. As a rank 8 spiritual type metahuman, Lan Lu could sense things more clearly than other rank 7 metahumans. Chang Qingqing frowned, her face a little dark. No way, another one is coming. There was already one here, and it was being held back by the people from the Huaxia base. Lan Lu's side was protecting their leader. He originally thought that after the female leader of the Universal Base arrived, there would be a turn for the better. He didn't expect that before his reinforcements could arrive, trouble would come knocking on his door. If this new mutated beast were to casually attack one side, it would directly disrupt the current situation. Or it would directly become an unstable factor that could threaten their side or their leader at any time. Woe dash as the aura got closer and closer. The rank 8 Wolf King began to let out a hurried low growl. It suddenly turned around, swinging its long tail behind it. Its entire face began to wrinkle as it bared its teeth and lowered its ears, letting out a threatening growl at the aura. Roar dash soon. A loud roar of a beast came from the other side. Roar dash the surrounding crowd was immediately suppressed by the auras of these two level 8 experts. After the two beasts released their auras and prepared to attack, other than the rank 8 metahuman Lan Lu, everyone felt their bodies stiffen and their breathing became difficult. The rank 7 metahumans were a little better, but those below rank 6 were somewhat deterred. Their bodies stiffened as if they had suddenly lost control. Hou Guozhong and Wei Haichao's expressions changed slightly. Why is there another rank 8? Could it be that the number of rank 8 mutated beasts has increased again? If these two mutated beasts fight, Lan Lu may directly attack us. We have to be vigilant. Wei Haichao's expression sank as he suddenly thought of this possibility and said with a frown, I'm also worried that this will happen. However, the Wolf King would definitely stop it if it were to charge at the rank 9 Arcanist. However, this Wolf King's IQ isn't low. I don't think it will really fight the new mutant beast. Hou Guozhong analyzed. Wei Haichao nodded, agreeing with his statement. Indeed, if that's the case, that wolf will also stop us from getting close, and that unknown mutated beast won't let the other opponents get their hands on it either. Then we can only wait and see. Hou Guozhong thought about it and decided that he couldn't act rashly against the 9th rank metahuman. The best thing to do now was to send someone to inform his leader to rush over as soon as possible. I'll immediately send someone to urge the leader to hurry over. If he doesn't come soon, his 9th grade energy core will be snatched away by something else. The appearance of the new mutant beast caused all three parties to lose their cool. Only the level 9 paranormal on the cliff remained calm. While everyone was focused on the new mutant beast, he suddenly turned around and jumped off the cliff with a loud roar. Ah! Lan Lu, Hou Guozhong, and the others could not react in time. Holy shit! He jumped down. Then what should we do now? Should we follow him? Before the humans could react, the Black Wolf King had already turned into a black shadow and leaped down the cliff. Chapter 11:28. Before Lan Lu and the others could react, the Black Wolf King followed the rank 9 metahuman and jumped down. Seeing the Black Wolf King's action, everyone reacted. Ching ching! Find a way to stop the people from China. Lan Lu quickly gave the order and immediately jumped down the cliff. Roar dash soon. A wolf's howl came from the bottom of the cliff. The bottom of the cliff was not a river or a lake, but a forest. The height of the cliff was only a few dozen meters, but the forest below was a world of poisonous insects and poisonous gas. The forest was filled with a poisonous miasma. Whether it was plants, animals, or reptiles, all of them had poisonous properties. Ordinary people or people with lower levels of abilities would either die from poisoning or being bitten to death by poisonous insects, or they would be attacked by poisonous mutated beasts and mutated plants. It was impossible to guard against them. The lives of the humans who entered this place were extremely fragile. After the Black Wolf King and Lan Lu jumped down one after another, a violent aura immediately came from behind the Black Wolf King. Roar dash then. The grass and trees on the ground trembled. Not long after, a huge mutant brown bear rushed over. The giant bear rushed to the edge of the cliff on all fours, then stood up abruptly. It opened its mouth and roared. Roar dash its aura spread along with the huge roar, scaring the birds and beasts in the surrounding forest. At the same time, it suppressed the humans around it. Pooh dash the ordinary people without abilities were all shocked and then spat out a mouthful of blood. Their bodies went limp and they directly fainted on the ground. Some even had their heartbeats stopped and died just like that. Most of them bled from their orifices and then collapsed to the ground. Wu dash the wolves left behind by the Black Wolf King immediately growled in fear and ran away with their tails between their legs. Of course, the level of those that the Black Wolf King brought with him was not low. There were more than 10 level 7 and the rest were level 5 and 6. Basically, there was no one below level 5. Therefore, when faced with the pressure of the giant bear, they could only retreat. But it did not affect them too much. However, the aura of the giant bear did not only spread to the surrounding area, but also hundreds of kilometers away. Lin Xiao immediately sensed it and her eyes lit up. A level 8. Mutant beast? Duan Wan, who was driving, did not feel it as clearly as she did, but she also felt a sudden oppressive aura. Fortunately, she was calm enough to not turn the steering wheel askew. Hearing Lin Xiao say this, she immediately understood what was going on. Level 8? Where? Duan Wan asked in confusion. That's the direction we're heading in. It's probably not far from where Lan Lu and the others are. From the looks of it, the leader of the Lan Lu family has attracted more than just humans, Lin Xiao said after sensing it carefully. Duan Wan asked in surprise. There are mutant beasts? But then again, mutated beasts that had evolved to level 7 or 8 had very high intelligence. Mutant beast has king is especially predators. Looks like this rank 9 ability user is in a very dangerous situation. Lin Xiao nodded and said with a sigh, I hope the Blue Land can hold on until we get there. The Lan family rank Dong family wolf is wolf but Li Shan is wild but is Yang king is Li Luan king. Duan Wan turned her head and glanced at her strangely. By the way, aren't you going to help? Why do you not care about the level 9 ability user? Lin Xiao also looked at her strangely. Although we are really going to help, we can't guarantee his life. If he were to self-destruct, would I be able to stop him? I just don't want his energy core to fall into the hands of others. Duan Wan looked at her speechlessly. Aren't you a little sinister? Lin Xiao shrugged and said with a calm face. I'll help as long as it's within my power. Even if I can't help, I can't force it. Chong Qingqing looked at the people behind her bitterly, while Lan Lu was thinking of a way to stop the Huaxia people. Apart from level 5 or 6, the others were useless. Even she herself wasn't a combat type. Follow me. Although that was what she thought, Chong Qingqing still called all the people who still had the ability to fight and forced their way towards the location of the Huaxia Foundation. Attack from afar and outsmart them. Don't get too close to them. Pay attention to their weapons. Yes, the ordinary people on the Huaxia side were basically paralyzed, but Hou Guozhong and Lin Xiao had brought many level 5 and 6 ability users. There were at least 100 people who could move at this time. Put on your masks. Let's go down too. Hou Guozhong did not care about Chong Qingqing and the others. When he saw that his target had jumped into the miasma forest below the cliff, he immediately ordered his people to put on their equipment. They were ready to go down and snatch the prey. If we go down now, Lan Lu and the Black Wolf King might already be fighting. Then the opportunity is ours. Everyone, hurry up. Wei Haichao also gave the order. Yes! I hope that the level 9 ability user falls to his death. Hou Guozhong muttered. But the next second, Wei Haichao retorted, You think too much. Even if he has used up all his energy, he is still a strength-type ability user. He is a level 9, how can he fall to his death? Hou Guozhong shrugged. Can I even think about it? What if it comes true? After saying that, he turned around and disappeared in a flash. When Lin Xiao gradually closed the distance between them and Lan Lu, she not only sensed the aura of the level 9 ability user, but also level 8 ability users and more than one level 8 mutant beast. 2 level 8 mutant beasts. Lin Xiao could smell the special smell of the mutant beasts. She stopped with everyone and stood on top of a hill to observe the fluctuations of the aura. Huh? Isn't there only one? Duan Wan stood behind her and asked doubtfully. I also felt the aura of more than one mutant beast. Both of them are very strong and full of threat. Lin Xiao nodded. He looked at Yan Huiguang, who was standing silently on the other side. This guy had been staring at the level 9 ability user. He must know the situation here. But he did not seem to want to tell Lin Xiao about the situation, and Lin Xiao did not care about him. Lin Xiao did not need him to provide any information. She already knew what she needed to know. She was here to help out, and she could directly sense the strength of the opponent. There is a special aura in their position. It seems that they ran into a place with poisonous gas. Lin Xiao sniffed and identified the special aura. She could roughly guess what kind of environment it was. Let's go. Lin Xiao suddenly ordered and disappeared from the top of the hill. When she arrived here, she had already put away all the cars because there was no road to drive. Chapter 11:29. At this time, in the base, Lin Feng and the others were sitting in the office, frowning. Lin Wenwen really disappeared. Did she disappear on her own, or was she taken away by someone else? If she was taken away by someone else, but they asked Qiu Lily to send a large number of zombie soldiers to search for Lin Wenwen's scent like police dogs. But there were no clues. After Wu Changyue finished dealing with Haicheng, he quickly came over. Seeing that everyone still didn't understand what was going on, he could only help to search. If he couldn't find her, he wouldn't give up. But that night, Liu Shan brought bad news to Wu Changyue. You said that Xikong Chun has secretly left for the northwest? When did this happen? Wu Changyue's smile disappeared as he asked expressionlessly. He left this morning. He should be halfway there by now. Liu Shan stood in front of Wu Changyue and reported. Wu Changyue looked at the ground and frowned as he thought. Xikong Chun had already left for the northwest, which meant that he wanted to personally obtain the energy core of the level 9 metahuman, and he was determined to get it. The level 9 metahuman was probably at the end of his life, and it was about time for him to make his move. If the female zombie and Lan Lu joined forces, it wouldn't be a problem to deal with Xikong Chun. Even Zombie Lu could deal with him alone. As for whether they could deal with him or not, it was hard to say. This was hard to say. After all, Great Zombie Lu. Oh no, it was better to call him Great Zombie Lin. After all, she had just advanced to level 8. However, a zombie's physique and strength would always be stronger than a metahuman of the same level. Therefore, if Big Zombie Lin and Xikong Chun were to fight, if Big Zombie Lin didn't use any destructive weapons, then Big Zombie Lin's chances of winning would be higher. But in addition to Xikong Chun himself, the army and subordinates he brought with him couldn't be ignored. Especially their weapons. The power of China's weapons had changed in the past 2 years, so they couldn't be underestimated. Looking at the situation, Lan Lu's side wasn't in a big crisis. But if there were other variables, then it would be hard to say. What's the situation with the level 9 metahuman? Thinking about it, he still needed to understand the situation. Liu Shan shook his head. Not good. The last movement was when he ran to the edge of a cliff and jumped down. Below them was the poisonous miasma forest, which was very dangerous. In addition to the humans present, There are also many mutated beasts that have their eyes on the level 9 Arcanist. When Wu Chengyue heard that there were mutant beasts, his heart sank. As expected, there are still other variables? What is the level of the shapeshifter? Li Yueshan was silent for 2 seconds before saying, 2 level 8 beasts. 2? Wu Chengyue raised his eyes abruptly and looked at him. Li Yueshan nodded. That's right, a black wolf king and a bear. They're all level 8. Wu Chengyue looked at him and asked, You also jumped off the cliff? Li Yueshan nodded again. Yes. Black wolf, Lan Lu, mutant bear, Ho Guozhong from China, and Wei Haichao followed suit. Wu Chengyue leaned back and crossed his arms in front of his chest. What about Chief Lu? Where is she? I received news that she's already in the vicinity, said Li Yueshan. She should be catching up with the target soon. So Sikong Chun hasn't arrived yet. Wu Chengyue analyzed the situation over there. If Zombie Lin arrived before Sikong Chun, then Sikong Chen's chances of getting close to the level 9 Arcanist wouldn't be high. But there were still 2 level 8 mutant beasts ahead. Lan Lu certainly wouldn't be able to deal with them alone, unless the 2 mutant beasts fought over the prey. With Lan Lu's IQ, he would definitely find a way to make the 2 level 8 mutant beasts fight. Then he would look for an opportunity to take away his own leader. With this analysis, Zombie Lin's situation wouldn't be in any danger. Wu Chengyue was relieved and said, Keep an eye on the information over there, and report back as soon as there's any new change. Yes. Li Yueshan immediately responded, but after that, he silently looked at Wu Chengyue. Wu Chengyue looked at him strangely. Is there something else? Li Yueshan didn't quite understand and asked, Aren't you going? What if something happens to Miss Lu? Wu Chengyue smiled and said, Do you really think she's still Lu Tianyu? Don't worry, with her ability, I believe she won't let herself fall into a passive position. It's not certain who will win or lose. Wu Chengyue still had a lot of faith in Zombie Lin's ability. After all, she was one of the first batch of leaders, and she had suffered a loss once. His memory had grown, and he had the strength that he needed to possess. As long as her IQ didn't drop, there shouldn't be any big problems. Li Yueshan didn't know that the Lu Tianyu he knew had been replaced by Lin Xiao, so he didn't understand where his boss's confidence came from. Was it because of love? So he believed in her strength? Or was it to protect his wife's self-esteem? Well, Li Yueshan, who was a single dog, turned and left with a puzzled look. After Wu Chengyue watched him leave, he sighed and said, That guy's problem isn't a problem. His sister's problem is a big problem. Lin Wenwen, who had suddenly returned to 7 years ago, looked at the people sitting in front of her, and then looked at the time outside. While those people weren't paying attention, she sneaked into the bathroom and searched this guy's clothes. Then she took out all the things that could prove her identity and searched them. This fat girl was called Dong Xinxin. She was only 17 years old this year and was still in her 3rd year of high school. Not to mention her height and weight, she was shown by her brother's light every day, but she also had to be shown by his buddies. What was even more excessive was that this naturally tanned brother doted on his sister, and always brought beautiful women to her side. Oh, wrong. That beautiful woman stuck to him on her own. This was because her older brother, who was upright, handsome, and warm, had no interest in girls at the moment. His EQ was in the negative, so even if a beautiful woman stuck to him, he wouldn't take a second look. However, some shamelessly stuck to his sister, thinking that if they wanted to get close to him, they might as well get close to his most beloved sister first. Of course, these were all Lin Wenwen's speculations after being in contact with these 4 people for a few hours. Looking at these 2 female college students trying to get close to her on the surface, but secretly disdaining her, how could Lin Wenwen, who was almost 30 years old, not see it? Chapter 1130. Seeing that the 2 girls kept calling Dong Xinxin's brother Lijia, it seemed that this brother's name was Dong Lijia. From Dong Lijia's words to the 2 girls, Lin Wenwen could guess that Dong Xinxin seemed to like these 2 girls very much. It seemed that if this Dong Xinxin was not too naive, then his IQ was not online. Looking at her clothes, Lin Wenwen could roughly guess Dong Xinxin's IQ range. These clothes were bought by the two girls when Dong Lijia wasn't paying attention. Because Dong Lijia felt that her clothes didn't fit, he dragged her to the mall to buy another set. Very good, her brother was not only handsome, but also rich. Well, the owner of this body didn't seem to be short of money, because she had a few bank cards in her wallet. Xin, what's wrong with you today? You don't seem to talk much. Are you feeling uncomfortable? At this time, the girl with vertical hair looked at Lin Wenwen and asked. This girl was called Lin Yuehui. Her target was not Dong Lijia, but Deng Chenfei, the cool handsome guy next to Dong Lijia. The other girl with a ponytail, Qin Jiao, was targeting Dong Lijia. After hearing Lin Yuehui's words, Lin Wenwen silently looked at Dong Lijia. He had stolen all her words today. She didn't even have to worry about exposing herself by saying too much. Although Dong Lijia really loved Dong Xin, it was obvious that this guy's EQ was not high. This guy's EQ was really low. He didn't pay much attention to what others were thinking. No. Lin Wenwen smiled and shook her head. It must be because I didn't let her buy shoes, so she was unhappy. Dong Lijia looked at Lin Wenwen and turned to Lin Yuehui. As he spoke, he directly put the shrimp in his chopsticks into the bowl in front of Lin Wenwen. Lin Wenwen looked at the normal shrimp in front of her, not the strange shrimp that mutated after the doomsday. She missed it so much that her saliva almost flowed out. She picked up the chopsticks and was about to peel it herself. Suddenly, a pair of chopsticks reached over from the side and took away her prawn. Judja, Xin doesn't eat shrimp. Did you forget? Deng Chenfei, who took away Lin Wenwen's shrimp, said unhappily. Hearing this, Dong Lijia finally reacted. Oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to give it to myself, but I forgot and gave it to you instead. Lin Wenwen watched as the prawns in his bowl flew away. No, she doesn't like it, but I like it. Give me back my shrimp. Although Lin Wenwen kicked Deng Chenfei again and again in his heart, on the surface, he could only look at him silently. I think you're too strict with Xin Lijia. You control what he wears and you don't even let him buy shoes. If it were me, I wouldn't be happy either. Qin Jiao said to Dong Lijia. I didn't say you can't buy it. You have to buy something suitable. He was not allowed to buy it because it was inappropriate. Believe me, you look good without those clothes, Dong Lijia said as he looked at Lin Wenwen. Lin Wenwen was staring at his empty bowl and grumbling when he heard him talking to him. She looked up at him silently, then picked up her chopsticks to pick up the chicken. If you don't want to be exposed, you'd better not eat chicken. Pick up some vegetables. At this moment, the voice in Lin Wenwen's mind rang again. Lin Wenwen's hand paused and immediately turned to the vegetables. However, her eyelids were slightly lowered, concealing the sharp glint in her eyes. Who are you? Did you bring me here? Lin Wenwen picked up some vegetables and ate while asking in his heart. You can say that I brought you back, but you can also say that I didn't bring you back. Actually, you're an accident. Lin Wenwen. What do you mean? This body is mine. It's me from 7 years ago, the voice said coldly. Lin Wenwen swallowed the vegetables in her mouth and said in surprise, Huh? You came back from 7 years later, that means it's been 7 years since the apocalypse? Speaking of which, why did you have to bring me back when you came back by yourself? But after she asked this, the voice that claimed to be Dong Xin disappeared again. Lin Wenwen asked anxiously, Hey, answer my question. Why did you bring me back 7 years ago? What's the accident you mentioned? Can I go back 7 years later? And where did my body go? Just like that, he suddenly ran back to 7 years ago and ran into someone else's body. She wanted to find herself. Since she went back 7 years ago, there must be another her. As long as she went back to her 7 years ago, or find her big sister. Then she would ask everyone to quickly store food and water, so that they wouldn't panic when the apocalypse arrived. But then she thought that she didn't die and suddenly came back. What if she wanted to go back 7 years later? If everything here changed again, what would it be like when she went back 7 years later? What if she messed up everyone's life and caused a butterfly effect? In fact, what she was most worried about was that if she changed everything now, she wouldn't be able to go back. Would she never be able to go back? Would she have to continue living with this body and identity? Looking at another her? Her family would become a stranger, and the stranger would become her family. It was scary just thinking about it. She didn't want to become like that. So she wanted to go back 7 years later. Go back to the apocalypse that she had adapted to, go back to her family. And the owner of this body, why was he silent again? Xin, are you okay? Why are you in a daze? Just as Lin Wenwen was struggling in her heart, Dong Lijia's voice suddenly came from the side. He waved a hand in front of her eyes. Lin Wenwen suddenly woke up. What? Eat, why aren't you eating? Are you in a daze? Dong Lijia looked at her strangely. Lin Wenwen casually glanced at the others, and sure enough, everyone was looking at her with a puzzled face. Just now, her heart was in turmoil, and she actually ignored the situation on the surface. Lin Wenwen was shocked and immediately calmed down. Oh no, maybe a little tired. I'm not very hungry. Looking at the table full of precious and rare food, Lin Wenwen regretted her words. Dong Lijia put a plate of fish in front of her and moved the chicken in front of her. Then he said to her, even if you're not hungry, you still have to eat. But we've been shopping for a whole day. I think you're really a little tired. Quickly finish eating and go back, you still have to go to school yesterday. But with your grades, I guess you can only go to university. Anyway, after you finish university, even if you don't work, I'll take care of you. Don't be so pressured. Hearing the word school, Lin Wenwen didn't feel pressured. But hearing Dong Lijia's words, she was speechless. Was he trying to comfort her? Or was he teasing her? Chapter 1131. The world is going to end in 3 months, what's the point of going to college? Help me convince my brother that the world is going to end in 3 months. Suddenly, the voice sounded in Lin Wenwen's mind again. Lin Wenwen quickly pretended to eat while asking, what do you want? Are we in the same body? How do I go back? Although I don't know how you came back, I have a way to let you go back 7 years. But you have to help me do a few things. You like fish heads? Lin Wenwen, who was about to reach the fish head, paused and asked, you don't want to eat it? I won't eat it. So Lin Wenwen could only silently move the chopsticks to the middle of the fish, complaining, the fish head is so delicious, but you don't want to eat it. What a waste. Why do you still want me to help you? You were the one who accidentally brought me back. And isn't this your body? Isn't it unnecessary for me to stay here? Because I am not in a good state right now. If I take over the body, I might fall into a coma. So please help me. After doing those things, I should be able to recover. I'll help you go back then. Lin Wenwen ate the fish and looked up at the others, seeing that they weren't paying attention to her anymore. She asked in disbelief, you said you can help me go back? Is that true? How will you help me? What if I don't have a place to go after leaving your body? Or I'll just die. That won't happen, believe me. Don't you want to go back? The you from 7 years ago is already here, you can't go back to your own body. While Lin Wenwen was talking to the voice in her head, Dong Lijia finally found out that Lin Wenwen was a bit absent-minded during dinner. So he suddenly said to her, how about I buy you a pair of flat Korean shoes? High heels won't do, they'll hurt your foot bones. Listen to me, change to something else. Lin Wenwen looked up at him, then her eyes suddenly flashed. She thought of something, nodding, yeah. Then she said to the voice, are you really Dong Xin? Then why did you come back here? I'm Dong Xin. Because I died 7 years later, I used my ability to return to this point in time. Dong Xin's tone had been flat before, but when he said this, it was different. Lin Wenwen could clearly feel the hatred and killing intent in her tone. Then hurry up and eat. After seeing Lin Wenwen nod, Dong Lijia immediately urged her to eat quickly. Lin Wenwen asked Dong Xin which dishes he didn't want to eat while he ate the food according to Dong Xin's recipe. But at the same time, he asked Dong Xin in his heart, looks like the cause of your death is not ordinary. Your resentment is drowning me. But you still haven't told me how you're going to send me back. Dong Xin said, my ability is quite special. Wait for me to recover. Maybe it will help you go back 7 years. Also, you didn't come back dead. but I accidentally brought you back. Your body is actually in my alternate dimension. Lin Wonwon stopped what he was doing, and his eyes lit up with surprise. Wait a minute, you said my body is with you? What is your ability? Space element? Could it be that Dong Xinshin's ability was the same as his? That's why he brought her in? Dong Xinshin said, it's not the space element, but it's also a kind of space element. Lin Wonwon was a little confused when she heard what she said. She asked curiously, not the space element? Is it a space element? But Dong Xinshin didn't want to say more. His voice came lightly. I'll explain it to you later. I can't take it anymore. Wait until I wake up. Lin Wonwon was stunned when she heard this. Can't take it anymore? What do you mean wait until I wake up? Oh yes, she just said that her current condition wasn't very good, and now she said that she had to wait until she woke up. Could it be that she fell into a state similar to a deep sleep or a coma? Just as Lin Wonwon was eating in big mouthfuls, Deng Chenfei, who had been expressionless and quiet, retracted his gaze that was secretly looking at her. He felt that Xinshin gave him a strange feeling since the afternoon, but he didn't know what the problem was. He looked at the food she picked up. It was the same as usual, there was no change. But why did he feel that her gaze seemed to fall on the dishes she didn't eat before? Chenfei, eat. You don't seem to eat much either. Do you have a bad appetite? At this time, Lin Yuehui used serving chopsticks to pick up a piece of chicken wing and put it in Deng Chenfei's bowl. Of course, the chicken wing she picked up was also according to Deng Chenfei's preferences, because she had looked up his information and his preferences. Deng Chenfei glanced at the chicken wings in his bowl. Although he didn't like it when other people took them for him, he didn't mind. But out of politeness, he still nodded and thanked her. Then he lowered his head and ate. After dinner, Lin Wonwon immediately walked towards the shoe store in the mall. Then, he first bought a few pairs of flat shoes for leisure or outdoor sports and pretended to buy them back. Wait a minute, I want to go to the bathroom. Does Yuehui want to go with me? At this time, Qin Jiao said that she wanted to go to the bathroom. Then, she asked Lin Yuehui if he wanted to go with her, but she didn't ask Lin Wonwon. Obviously, she didn't want Lin Wonwon to follow. Lin Yuehui glanced at her and immediately received the signal when he saw her eyes. Then he nodded and said, then you guys go shopping first. We'll go to the bathroom first. Dong Lijia, who was carrying things with both hands, nodded and asked Lin Wonwon, do you want to go? Lin Wonwon smiled and shook his head. Not yet. Then, the three of them watched the two girls go to the bathroom. When they were out of sight, Lin Wonwon suddenly said, forget it. I'll go. Then, she also went to the bathroom. She went inside a little later, but she didn't go in directly. Instead, she leaned against the wall of the women's bathroom. She crossed her arms and listened to the conversation inside. What's wrong with Dong Xinshin today? She seems to be very obedient to her brother. She doesn't seem to care about what we say. Qin Jiao said, who cares? We remember that we always tell her what looks good on her. She will slowly think that what we say is right. Besides, Dong Lijia is a guy. How can he understand a girl's aesthetics? Also, he is so strict with Dong Xinshin. Maybe one day Dong Xinshin will start to hate him. When that time comes, she will definitely go against Dong Lijia. Then, Dong Lijia will hate her more and more. Lin Yuehui's voice was calm. At the same time, there was a slight sound of the lid being closed. Is this okay? If we make Dong Lijia hate her, then why are we trying so hard to please her? Qin Jiao didn't quite understand. Are you stupid? Apart from his studies, Dong Lijia's thoughts were all on her. She was waiting for the day when he got tired of her. When the day comes that he gets tired of her, he might notice you. Don't you know how scary it is to have a sister complex? Besides, if Dong Lijia doesn't stick to Dong Xinshin, then Chenfei doesn't have to hang out with Dong Xinshin so often because of Dong Lijia, Lin Yuehui said to her impatiently. Chapter 1132. As Lin Wonwon listened, the light in her eyes dimmed slightly. Then she turned around and walked out. Huh? Are you alone? Where are the two of them? Dong Lijia looked at Lin Wenwen in confusion as he walked over from the direction of the bathroom. Lin Wenwen shrugged and said, "In the back." After the two girls came out, Dong Lijia drove them home. They all lived in the same city and were not far from each other. In fact, they all knew each other from their families. Because their families all had business dealings with each other, the younger generation often played together. The Dong family was a big company, and Deng Chenfei's group was a little smaller than the Dong family. The other two girls' family backgrounds were a little lower. In general, these people in front of Lin Wenwen were actually the young masters and daughters of rich families. Dong Xinxin was also a rich young lady, but she didn't look like one. Returning to her big house, she saw that she had to walk through hundreds of meters of flower beds from the front gate to the front gate of the big house. There was a group of bodyguards at the gate, and there was also a group of bodyguards at the gate of the house. Lin Wenwen thought to herself, "Rich, rich, rich." Young Master, 2nd Mississippi. Standing at the gate to greet them was a middle-aged man with a straight figure and bulging muscles under his suit. He wore a pair of glasses on his gentle face, which hid the light in his eyes, but it still couldn't escape Lin Wenwen's eyes. She silently looked at the middle-aged man who looked like a butler. Then she immediately turned to Dong Lijia. Dong Lijia waved to the middle-aged man and said, "My parents haven't come back yet, have they?" As he said that, he walked towards the door. The middle-aged man nodded. After Lin Wenwen followed him inside, he walked behind Lin Wenwen and replied, "The chairman has an important social engagement tonight. Madam hasn't come back after she went out during the day." "Oh, I see." Dong Lijia nodded as he walked through the living room to the stairs. The middle-aged man stood in the living room and didn't follow him. Lin Wenwen secretly marveled at the size of the living room just now. Then she looked at Dong Lijia, who was still carrying her shoes. He probably wanted to help her carry them to her room. She didn't have to find Dong Xinxin's room by herself. When they reached the door, Dong Lijia stuffed the bag into Lin Wenwen's hand. "Here, rest early." After saying that, he turned around and went back to his room. Lin Wenwen immediately stopped him. "Wait a minute." Dong Lijia stopped and looked back at her. "What's wrong?" Lin Wenwen took out the key on his body and compared it with the keyhole to identify which key it was. Then he said, "Oh, help me open the door." Only then did Dong Lijia realize that he had stuffed the things in both of his hands into his sister's hands. So she didn't have the hands to open the door. Dong Lijia immediately took the key from Lin Wenwen's finger and opened the door for her. After Lin Wenwen entered, he saw Dong Lijia standing outside the door. Seeing that Zhang Xian had entered, he was about to turn around and leave. She called to him again. "Wait a moment. What's wrong now?" Dong Lijia, who was about to leave, turned around again and looked at her strangely. "Come in first," Lin Wenwen said to him. "What for?" Dong Lijia looked at her in confusion, then looked at her again. "I thought you were weird today. You didn't say anything. You didn't call anyone." Lin Wenwen was stunned. "Call who?" Dong Lijia rolled his eyes and said, "Think about it. Have you called me brother since this afternoon? You haven't." His Xinxin clearly liked to call him brother the most. Lin Wenwen wanted to roll her eyes, but she restrained herself on the surface. This guy was younger than her, but he wanted her to call him brother. Besides, she wasn't really his sister. She couldn't call him brother. "Come in first. I have something to say." Lin Wenwen didn't want to talk nonsense with him. She threw the bag in her hand on the ground. Then she pulled him and closed the door behind her. Dong Lijia, who was suddenly pulled in, looked at her in confusion. "Why are you so mysterious?" After closing the door, Lin Wenwen turned around and looked at him. Then she frowned and thought about how to tell him that she wasn't his sister, and how to tell him that the end of the world would come in 3 months. It was easy to say it. She just needed to say it out. But it might be a bit difficult to make him believe it. Lin Wenwen turned left and right behind the door. She looked at Dong Lijia and wanted to say something. "Tisk, just say it. If you have something to say, hurry up and say it. Why are you turning around?" Dong Lijia was very curious about her appearance, and his heart was itching. "Do you have someone you like? Who is it? What does he look like?" How are his studies? How is his character? Wait a minute. It's not the time to ask about this. No, why are you in love at this time? Seeing that Lin Wonwon just wanted to say something but stopped, Dong Lijia immediately let his imagination run wild. He thought that his sister had met someone she liked. No wonder she was acting weird today. Not only did she want to buy tight clothes to wear, but she also wanted to buy high heels. Moreover, she looked absent-minded. She must have someone she liked. Lin Wonwon looked at him speechlessly. No, don't think too much. What I want to say is, what is it? Dong Lijia stared at her and asked impatiently. Lin Wonwon pursed her lips and said, Will you believe me if I tell you? I'm afraid you won't believe me. Dong Lijia felt something was wrong when he heard this. He looked at her strangely. What do you mean believe me? If you don't like someone else, then what is it? Lin Wonwon looked at him and said, I want to say that the world will have a destructive change in 3 months. Do you believe me? Dong Lijia said, No. Lin Wonwon immediately glared at him. See, you don't believe me, but you have to believe it because I'm not your sister. Dong Lijia was speechless. Seeing his expression, Lin Wonwon slapped away his hand that was about to touch her forehead. What's with that expression? Do you think I'm joking with you? Dong Lijia silently withdrew his hand, which was a little numb after being slapped. Then he nodded. But in his heart, he thought, when did this girl become so strong? My hand hurts. Lin Wonwon's expression turned cold, and then she sneered at him. Really? Then tell me, can your sister fight? However, when Dong Lijia heard this, his expression became blank and puzzled. Fight? How is that possible? How can a person who can fall down 3 times while running dozens of meters fight? Lin Wonwon was speechless. Dong Xinshin, so you are a person who can fall down 3 times while running dozens of meters. Inexplicably thinking of this posture of falling down, Lin Wonwon almost broke down. Chapter 1133. Just as Lin Wonwon was thinking about how Dong Xinshin couldn't stay calm after falling, she calmly made her move. She suddenly grabbed Dong Lijia's wrist and pulled him up. She turned her back to Dong Lijia. Then, she spread her legs, one in front of the other in the back. She quickly bent forward and exerted force with her back legs and waist. Dong Lijia's entire body was flung out. Wow! Bang! Dong Lijia was caught off guard. Before he could react, he felt dizzy. Then, he was thrown to the ground with a bang. That wasn't all. He fell to the ground. After falling to the ground, he was immediately turned over by a force. One of his hands was twisted backward and a huge force pressed down on his back. In an instant, his body's freedom was suppressed. Dong Lijia was lying on the ground with a dumbfounded look. He was stunned. You can try and see if you can escape from my hands. Lin Wonwon sat on his back and said with a smile. Just now, she had almost guessed where the limit of this body's physical strength was. Although she could use her reflexes freely, the strength of this body, the range of movements, endurance, and so on were all ordinary people, or even worse than ordinary people. Because this was the body of a fat man. Hearing Lin Wonwon's words, Dong Lijia suddenly came back to his senses. He immediately began to struggle, but he felt a force on his back firmly suppressing him. Moreover, he couldn't pull back his hand that was twisted behind his back. At this time, Dong Lijia was still a bit confused. His mind was still thinking, who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? This time, when he came to his senses, he found that the person who suddenly threw him over the shoulder and grabbed him was his sister, who had never been very coordinated. Just a second ago, his sister said that she wasn't his sister. But his sister really couldn't make such a sharp fighting move. Could it be what she said was true? If what she said was true, then what about his sister? Then, who was this person wearing his sister's face? If the face could be the same, then the body could be the same. That would be too strange, right? Many doubts and questions filled Dong Lijia's mind, causing his reaction and expression to crash. Lin Wonwon let go of him and stood up. You still don't believe me? Then get up. I'll tell you one more thing. After regaining his freedom, Dong Lijia crawled up reflexively. He began to stare at her from head to toe with a skeptical gaze. Lin Wonwon extended his hand and said to him, "Watch." Then, with a wave of her hand, a pistol appeared in her hand out of thin air. Seeing the gun, Dong Lijia's eyes widened. He stared at her hand in disbelief, then quickly glanced at her face. Lin Wonwon threw the gun in his hand into his arms. "You can see if it's real." Dong Lijia looked at the gun flying toward him and hurriedly caught it. Then, he held it in his hands and looked at Lin Wonwon as if he had seen a ghost. Where did you get the gun?" "No. You didn't have anything in your hands just now. How did you do it?" As he spoke, he carefully touched the gun in his hand. It felt cold, metallic, and heavy. No matter how he looked at it, it didn't look fake, although Dong Lijia had never seen a real gun. However, the gun in his hand gave him an oppressive feeling. This was not the aura of a fake gun. This was a real gun. Because I'm a paranormal. I'm a space type. 3 months later, a natural virus will spread all over the world. Then you'll see countless people become zombies like in the movies. They can continue to move, walk, and jump after they die. What they like most is to pounce on the living and eat their flesh. And among the surviving humans, there will be a small number of people who will slowly mutate and gain some abnormal energy and skills. Lin Wonwon walked in front of him and took back the gun in his hand. Then she put it into the space. Her space could still be used, and the area was very large. To her, this was a very pleasant surprise. Moreover, she had brought back all the things in the space. She just didn't know if she could take all the things here. Dong Lijia was shocked and opened his mouth wide. Took him a long time to find his voice. "Is what you said true?" Lin Wonwon shrugged and said, "Do you still think I'm your sister? Would your sister talk to you like this?" Dong Lijia immediately shook his head and looked at his sister, who was like a stranger in front of him. He couldn't make any reaction. "Your sister is still in this body, but she might have met with some accident. She can't wake up and talk to us for the time being. But don't worry, she should be fine." Lin Wonwon was in the mood to look at the environment in the room. Then, she walked to the desk and pulled out a chair to sit down. She was a little breathless from the movement just now. Dong Xinshin's body was really useless. "Then, who are you? Why are you in Xinshin's body?" Dong Lijia digested what she said and looked at her with disbelief. Lin Wonwon spread out his hands and said, "You have to ask your sister. I don't know." Dong Lijia covered his forehead and used his other hand to block Lin Wonwon's direction. Wait a minute. Let me digest. Virus? Doomsday? And zombies? Are you sure you're not lying to me?" Lin Wonwon looked at him coldly. "What's in it for me to lie to you? You don't believe that it's your loss. After the apocalypse, resources are very precious, and everyone can become zombies. If you get bitten or scratched by zombies, you will also become a zombie. You can choose not to believe me, but what I'm doing now is on behalf of your sister. So don't stop me. It's not that. This is too sudden. Let me think about it." Dong Lijia held his head and sat on the sofa at the side. Lin Wonwon said, "You should be glad that I returned to 3 months before the apocalypse broke out. In September, when the school starts, the apocalypse will come. So, you now have 3 months to prepare resources and weapons." "Weapons?" Hearing Lin Wonwon's last sentence, Dong Lijia immediately looked up at her. "Humph, when the apocalypse comes. On one side, you have to face zombies, and on the other side, you have to face crazy humans. Don't trust people too much, because in order to survive after the apocalypse, people will stab you in the back. Stabbing people in the back is already the norm. You will also encounter man-eating bandits, as well as all kinds of mutated plants and animals." Lin Wonwon snorted coldly at him. Hearing this, Dong Lijia became silent. Although Lin Wonwon's tone was very calm, he could hear something cold in her words. He looked up at her and asked, "Then, who are you?" Chapter 11:34. In response to Dong Lijia's question, Lin Wonwon replied calmly, "Who I am isn't important. What's important is that if you trust me, then go back and think about what to do. You have 3 months to prepare. After the apocalypse, Electricity and transportation would be paralyzed. Internet signals would disappear, plants and animals would mutate, and water sources would be polluted. After that, armed forces would quickly set up security bases. I will draw the locations of these bases for you tomorrow. His words implied that he could leave the room. Dong Lijia stared at her blankly for 2 seconds. It wasn't until Lin Wenwen pointed in the direction of the door that he reacted. Then he still looked at her with a face full of disbelief. Lin Wenwen thought about it and said, "Anyway, I've already told you everything I need to say. It's up to you whether you believe me or not. Just don't regret it then." After saying that, she didn't care about his reaction. After all, he needed some time to accept it. Anyone who suddenly heard such news would have the same reaction as Dong Lijia. The first one was that he wouldn't believe it. His second reaction was, "How is this possible?" My third reaction was, "Are you kidding me?" But from the looks of it, Lin Wenwen had just shown off his fighting skills and pulled out a gun out of thin air. Even if Dong Lijia didn't believe it, he had to take her words seriously. He stood up and headed for the door. After he left, Lin Wenwen locked himself in the room and took out Dong Xinxin's phone to surf the internet. He went to various online stores to place orders, such as rice, mineral water, all kinds of packaged food, fruits, clothes, shoes, and so on. Anyway, she had brought her space with her. She packed everything into her space. It could also be kept fresh in a vacuum, so its shelf life was naturally extended. Although it was Dong Xinxin's money, Lin Wenwen did not feel guilty at all. Who asked this fellow to come back on his own? Why did he drag her into it? Lin Wenwen didn't stop until several of Dong Xinxin's bank cards on the shopping platform were wiped out. But it wasn't enough. He hadn't bought enough things. However, there was no money left. Should he borrow some from Dong Lijia? Thinking of this, Lin Wenwen immediately stood up and ran out of the room. But when he walked out, he was dumbfounded. Holy shit, where is that guy's room? There were corridors on both sides and doors on both sides. However, Lin Wenwen did not know which door Dong Lijia's room was. You want to search one by one? No, forget it. She wasn't looking. I believe that guy will come looking for me tomorrow morning. Lin Wenwen looked around and immediately retreated back into the room. If that guy came looking for her tomorrow, it meant that he believed her. In that case, Lin Wenwen could be considered to have completed the first task of helping Dong Xinxin. He just didn't know what she wanted him to do with her body next. She probably wouldn't be able to change back in a short period of time, so she had to get used to this fatty's body. Also, it was time to lose weight. He still had to train. Looking around, Dong Xinxin's room was also very big. There was a bathroom, a toilet, a balcony, a changing room, a shoe closet. The young miss of a rich family lived in a different environment. After silently visiting Miss Dong's room, Lin Wenwen took out a set of loose pajamas from the wardrobe and went into the bathroom. When Lin Xiao reached the top of the cliff, he smelled the surrounding scents and looked at the forest below the cliff. The naked eye was unable to see what was happening below, as there was a faint gray mist. Lin Xiao squinted her eyes and looked down. The gray mist directly turned into a deep purple color in her sight. She looked back at the 3 humans in the team. Duan Wan, Yan Huiguang, and Shui Mingjun were all zombies. Therefore, there was no possibility of them being poisoned by the miasma. You guys stay outside and wait, quietly observe the situation. Whatever happens has nothing to do with us. Don't worry about it. Lin Xiao pointed Lin Ran to Duan Wan's side and said to them. Then she took out 2 small bottles of blue liquid and handed them to Duan Wan. She said to Yan Huiguang and Shui Mingjun, "You two, drink this. This medicine has no effect on you now, but after a month, it will make you lose your mind and enter a state of madness. So if I haven't come back after 15 days, you two go to Haicheng to find Wu Chengyue for the antidote." After she finished speaking, Yan Huiguang's eyes immediately sank. Shui Mingjun was also silent for a few seconds, but he quickly took the medicine from Duan Wan's hands and drank it without hesitation. Lin Xiao smiled and paid attention to their reactions. When she saw Shui Mingjun drink it, Yan Huiguang's eyes immediately flashed. The corner of her mouth hooked up into a meaningful arc. After Shui Mingjun drank the medicine, He threw the bottle away and looked at Lin Xiao before turning around and dashing into the nearby forest. His figure quickly disappeared in front of everyone. Although he disappeared, his breath was still nearby. Obviously, he didn't go far. After seeing Shui Mingjun disappear, Yan Huiguang stared at Lin Xiao for 2 seconds and then poured the medicine in his hand into his mouth. A bitter, sour, and slightly disgusting taste spread in his mouth, and then he quickly swallowed it into his stomach. After seeing the two obediently drink the medicine, Lin Xiao turned around in satisfaction. She led the other zombies and directly jumped down from the cliff, quickly falling into the poisonous forest below. Landing on the branches at the top of the tree, Lin Xiao quickly drilled into the tree and then slid down the tree. When she reached the middle of the tree, she stopped. Then she jumped in the direction of the breath coming from the blue land, passing through the tall mutated trees. The mutated trees here were very tall, and the tree shape was twisted and lush. The sunlight under the trees was almost blocked, the light was very dim, and the forest was filled with a faint gray fog. It gave people a very dangerous and oppressive feeling. Roar, boom, bang. From time to time in front of her came the roar of wild beasts, the sound of trees falling, and the sound of rocks exploding and so on. The movement of the fight was not small. From time to time, the ground of the base would shake. Lin Xiao, who directly swayed on the tree, could feel it. Mo, Yi Qingxian, and the other zombies scattered behind her, like flying monkeys shuttling through the forest. Roar. After a roar in front of her, a huge black shadow flew out. Then with a bang sound, it knocked down a thick mutated tree. The big brown bear immediately climbed up from the ground and roared at the big black wolf standing on the top of the tree. Then it spread its limbs and rushed over. Then it violently hit the tree that the black wolf was standing on, easily knocking down the mutated tree that needed 2 people to hug it. Walalala. The sound of the wind and the sound of the huge tree falling spread again. Chapter 11:35. When the giant bear hit the tree, the black wolf on the tree immediately jumped lightly. It calmly leaped onto another tree, and as soon as it stood on the tree, it immediately turned around and swung its claws at the giant bear, unleashing a barrage of concentrated icicles. Each crystal-clear icicle was as thick as a baby's arm, and its tip was very sharp and slender. In the blink of an eye, it shot towards the giant bear at high speed. Roar. At this time, the giant bear hit the top of the tree and did not have the time to turn around. However, when it sensed the icicles shooting at it from behind, it immediately turned around with unimaginable agility. Then, he stood up abruptly, opened his mouth and roared at the icicles that were rushing towards him. Then it spat out a huge flame from its mouth. Puff, puff, puff. After Hei Lang's cold all was shot into the flame, it quickly broke into pieces. After the big brown bear spat out the flame, it quickly retreated. Then, its huge body suddenly hid in the forest behind it and disappeared. Hei Lang immediately looked around vigilantly, because not only had the giant bear's figure disappeared, even its aura had been restrained. It was very good at concealing its aura, and when it was serious, it couldn't even sense a black wolf of the same level. On the other side, Lan Lu was anxiously paying attention to the situation of the rank 9 metahumans while defending against the dual attacks of Ho Guozhong and his partner's weapons. Bang! The rocket launcher once again flew towards the direction of the rank 9 metahuman. The level 9 arcanist who was in a frenzy was not without reaction, but his reaction was very extreme. Lan Lu was so tired that he couldn't stop them at all, because he was a spiritual type. Although his ability was already at level 8 and his body was a little tougher than the average person, compared to the people present, he was very fragile. On one side were rockets, and on the other was the energy storm of a level 9 arcanist. Neither was something he could withstand. But even so, he still had to face the consequences of his serious injuries and charge forward. At the same time, he used a mental attack to attack Ho Guozhong's brain and then knocked his leader away. At the same time, he was repelled by the energy storm around his leader. In the end, both of them were sent flying, crashing into the surrounding trees and rocks. However, it also successfully avoided the range of Ho Guozhong's rocket. Boom! The rocket brushed past the two of them and directly hit a small hill on the opposite side. Cough, cough, cough. Lan Lu collapsed under a tree at the side. He clutched his chest and forced himself to get up. Although the impact of the collision did not cause much damage to him, his leader's energy left quite a few scars on his body. His clothes had been crushed into rags, but fortunately, the important parts were not torn. Ugh! Pooh! Ho Guozhong's face turned green after being attacked by Lan Luhui. A vein suddenly popped out on his forehead. He suddenly exhaled, then closed his eyes, and his facial features twisted. His body went limp and he collapsed. Old Ho, Wei Haichao, who was beside him, quickly caught him and pulled him away from the Blue Land's attack range. Fortunately, the distance between them was not close, and Ho Guozhong did not intend to fight with Lan Lu and the Black Wolf King. Roar! The Black Wolf King was searching for the aura of its old rival, the giant bear. When it suddenly sensed that other hunters dared to attack its prey, it immediately turned its head and roared angrily in Ho Guozhong's direction. Then, its figure flashed and disappeared from the original tree. After it disappeared, a huge shadow of a bear quietly appeared on a tree not far behind it, lying silently on the tree. The Black Wolf King suddenly left its original spot and changed its position. It was climbing up for a moment, but in the next second, it began to climb down silently. Originally, it wanted to sneak attack the Black Wolf King from behind, but the Black Wolf King was distracted by something else. Although it was very big, like a brown bear that was as big as an elephant, it probably weighed 1,000 pounds. However, its movement of climbing the tree was very agile, and the tree did not even shake. Of course, the tree it chose was also a huge mutated tree. After climbing to the bottom of the tree, the giant bear's figure began to become transparent. Then, it once again moved in the direction of the Black Wolf King. In a flash, the Black Wolf King rushed in front of Wei Haichao and Ho Guozhong, successfully blocking the two of them. Roar! It stood in front of the two of them, lowered its head, and stared angrily at Ho Guozhong, who was being supported by Wei Haichao. Baring its teeth, it suddenly raised a claw and waved it in the air. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh! A large number of sharp icicles shone with a refracted light and shot towards the two of them. Wei Haichao waved his hand and immediately mobilized the surrounding trees to quickly extend their branches and leaves in front of him to block the flying icicles. PFFF, PFFF, PFFF. The sound of trees being broken rang out, but there were still a lot of icicles flying through the dense leaves. Once again, they chased after the two of them. The ice condensed by the attack of a level 8 mutated beast was harder than alloy steel. Therefore, apart from the level 8 mutant bear's flames that could block these icicles, Wei Haichao's level 7 wood element could not block them at all. Therefore, after the icicles released by the Black Wolf King broke through the obstructing branches, Wei Haichao only had time to drag Ho Guozhong to avoid them. The Black Wolf King watched Wei Haichao run further and further away, and did not continue to pursue. Instead, it looked at the crazy level 9 ability user, and then its figure flashed and once again turned into a black shadow that even the naked eye could not see and pounced forward. Because at this time, the energy storm around the level 9 ability user suddenly decreased in power, this was a very good loophole to attack. Feeling that his leader was in danger again, Lan Lu hurriedly searched for traces of the Black Wolf King, and then released a mental attack. Roar! The Black Wolf King, who had just pounced in front of the level 9 ability user, suddenly felt a sharp pain in its head. After a painful roar, it fell from mid-air, somewhat unsteadily landing on the ground. And just as it fell to the ground, it stood unsteadily and shook its head. Suddenly, a huge shadow of a bear pounced from behind, opening its two huge bear claws to grab the back of the Black Wolf King. The Black Wolf King was shocked, and immediately rolled on the ground, narrowly avoiding the attack of the giant bear. Then it stood up and roared at the giant bear, and then angrily pounced forward. Roar! Roar! The giant bear also roared without fear, and unyieldingly charged forward. Who? The two mutant beasts suddenly used the most primitive method of attack. You flash your claws, I flash my claws, You scratch me, you bite me, I bite you. Then the two giant beasts pounced into a ball and bit each other. At this time, Lan Lu immediately took advantage of the chaos to get close to his leader who was still hitting the rocks, ready to knock him out when the energy around him was not so violent, and then drag him away. Chapter 1136. When Lin Xiao arrived in stealth mode, he saw two level 8 mutant beasts rolling around, biting and clawing at each other. Another level 9 mutant was trying to sneak up on the level 9 mutant, Lan Lu. After she looked at the scene in front of her, she immediately flashed towards the level 9 Arcanist. Then she ignored the energy storm around the level 9 Arcanist, which was much weaker and did not cause much damage to her. She raised her hand and slashed at the back of the Arcanist's neck. The level 9 Arcanist's body trembled, and then the aura around him suddenly dissipated and disappeared. Lan Lu, who had just gotten close, was stunned. Then he saw his leader's energy suddenly dissipate, and then he slumped to the ground. Lin Xiao stood next to him and looked at Lan Lu's sorry figure from head to toe and smiled. Yo, not bad. Lan Lu. The appearance of Lin Xiao and the disappearance of the level 9 Arcanist's aura caused the Black Wolf King, who was fighting with the giant bear, to stop. Then it turned its head to look at Lin Xiao. Roar. His prey had been snatched away by someone else. Therefore, the Black Wolf King immediately roared and instantly abandoned the giant bear that was fighting. It rushed towards Lin Xiao in a flash. As soon as it turned around, the giant bear behind it immediately opened its mouth and spat a fireball at it. The fireball quickly and accurately hit the Black Wolf King's buttocks. Awoo! The Black Wolf King howled in pain as its body flew diagonally and hit a tree trunk on the side. There was also a ball of fire on its long tail. This made the Black Wolf King anxious. It turned its head and spat a mouthful of ice mist at its tail. From beginning to end, the giant bear's target was only the Black Wolf King, and it did not seem to care about the level 9 Arcanist at all. It was clearly staring at the Black Wolf King, and as soon as there was an opportunity, it would attack. However, while the Black Wolf King was dealing with it, its mind was more on the level 9 Arcanist. As long as it could get the energy core of this level 9 prey and break through to the level 9 stage, it would no longer be afraid of this bastard giant bear. The flame on the giant bear's tail was immediately condensed into an ice flame by the giant bear's ice mist, and then it shattered with a flick of its wrist. At the same time, a piece of fur from the wolf's tail was also broken. The black wolf instantly felt the coolness behind its butt. It turned its head and roared at the giant bear in anger. Roar. However, it only roared twice and did not pounce on the giant bear. In the next second, he suddenly turned around and pounced in the direction of Lin Xiao and the others. Lan Lu had already walked to his leader's side. When he saw Lin Xiao appear, he heaved a sigh of relief. After hearing Lin Xiao's words, before he could answer, he saw the black wolf rushing over again. However, before the black wolf could reach him, its tail was burned by the bear again. Seeing Black Wolf pouncing on them again, Lan Lu grabbed his leader's arm and pulled him up. Then he glanced at Lin Xiao. Lin Xiao glanced at him and waved a black wall of fire at the black wolf. Roar. The Black Wolf King let out a startled howl when it saw the black wall of fire that was about to crash into it. He twisted his body in mid-air, but he didn't have any foothold, so he couldn't avoid his forward momentum. Just like that, it crashed into Lin Xiao's black wall of fire. Then, another howl was heard. Roar. After passing through the black wall of fire, the black wolf landed on the ground. Its whole body was covered in a layer of ice, but there was a strange black flame on the surface of the ice. The giant wolf immediately rolled on the ground, hoping to extinguish the black flame on its body. Although the energy in the black wall of fire wasn't much higher than its own, the aura of this energy was able to devour its own energy. Seeing the giant wolf rolling on the ground, the giant bear on the other side thought for a moment and decided to pounce on it. Suddenly, a burst of flames wrapped around its body, and then it waved its sharp claws at the black wolf. The black wolf couldn't react in time and dodged a little too late. As a result, it was scratched by the giant bear's claws, and a large part of the ice shield on its body was immediately shattered. At this time, Lin Xiao's black flame immediately spread toward the few scratches. At the same time, the giant bear's claws were also infected by Lin Xiao's black flame. The black flame on the fur of the two mutated beasts quickly devoured their energy and burned bigger and bigger. Roar! The giant bear was also very afraid of the energy in Lin Xiao's black flame, but it saw that the black wolf had finally weakened and revealed an opening. If it didn't seize the opportunity to attack now, it might not have the chance in the future. Therefore, after hesitating for a moment, it decided to continue attacking the black wolf. But it didn't expect that although the attack was successful, the strange black flame on the other party's body would spread to its claws. The giant bear was startled by the black flame on its paw, and then it immediately stood on the spot and jumped around, constantly swinging its paw. Bang! 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 A giant bear the size of an elephant jumping around. What kind of scene was this? Clumsy and stupid could only be described as roar, roar. The giant bear swung its paw while roaring in panic. On the other side, the black wolf continued to roll on the ground. The black flame that spread through the wound not only devoured the black wolf's energy, but also melted its flesh. The pain caused Black Wolf to howl in pain. He kept releasing his ice attribute energy to block the wound. They seem to be very afraid of your fire. Lan Lu carried his leader to Lin Xiao's side and looked at the two level 8 mutated beasts that were very powerful just now in a panic. He didn't expect the female zombie's ability to be so effective. Wasn't she a poisonous mist type before? Why did she suddenly become a poisonous fire type? Lan Lu could even feel a strange sense of danger from her black flames. His instincts told him that it was best not to get close. Lin Xiao said, "My ability has a special effect on mutated beasts and zombies." Saying that, she looked in one direction and sensed Wei Haichao and Hou Guozhong's aura from afar. She slightly frowned and said, "You didn't get rid of those two mice?" Lan Lu turned his head to look. His originally elegant and handsome face was now a bit embarrassed, but his eyes were still very sharp. He said, "They are very cautious, and they are hiding quite far away. But that Hou Guozhong was hit by me once, so he probably won't be able to recover so quickly." Lin Xiao nodded and looked in the direction of the two people's aura. No wonder they have been distancing themselves from here. Lan Lu glanced in the direction she was looking at and said, "Maybe they felt that your appearance made them feel that it was impossible to succeed. That's why they are planning to retreat." Lin Xiao shook her head. "I don't think so." Although they were a few kilometers away, Lin Xiao could still vaguely sense the other party's thoughts. The other party didn't intend to give up, as if they were still waiting for an opportunity. Chapter 1137. Maybe it was because of the poisonous fog in the miasma forest, but Lin Xiao's sense of smell had decreased a little. Fortunately, he could still sense auras in a large range from afar. Roar! Black Wolf, who was probably suffering from Lin Xiao's black fire, suddenly roared fiercely. Then, it suddenly released a wave of powerful energy ice from its head, spreading from the inside out. It was as if it was covered in a layer of crystal, and its originally soft fur was frozen. It forcibly froze Lin Xiao's flames. Then, the ice all over his body suddenly cracked and fell. Then, it turned from a black, long-haired wolf king to a wolf with no fur all over its body. Then, it suddenly turned around and fiercely pounced towards the giant bear that was jumping and waving its arms. It opened its mouth and spat out a large amount of ice mist. The ice mist quickly spread from its mouth, and in the blink of an eye, it had spread to a range of 100 meters. The giant bear happened to be within its attack range, and the surrounding vegetation and trees were frozen into ice sculptures. Even the top of the trees that were more than 100 meters tall quickly became ice-white. The surrounding cold air also spread out, and many small animals and countless mutant insects that survived in the forest were frozen in the ice. The giant brown bear that was jumping around suddenly had a layer of ice all over its body. Then, its movements were frozen, and its whole body was frozen in a strange position. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. Black Wolf saw that the giant bear was frozen, and immediately pounced, waving its claws and biting towards the giant bear. At the same time, It also swung a large number of sharp ice awls at the giant bear. If this guy had not suddenly run out and obstructed its attack, it would have been able to kill the half-crippled level 9 guy. It would have been able to kill the half-crippled level 9 guy a long time ago. And it wouldn't have waited until a new enemy that was stronger than itself appeared. So, when Black Wolf saw that the level 9 metahuman was already protected by Lan Lu and Lin Xiao, two level 8 enemies, it immediately understood that its hunt had failed. If it rushed up again, it would not be able to find a chance to kill the level 9 guy. Instead, it might be suppressed by the two level 8 enemies with strange attacks. At that time, he might become someone else's prey. So when He Lang gave up on the rank 9 Arcanist in his heart, at the same time, he became angry at Giant Bear who had brought him a lot of trouble just now. However, it did not intend to fight the Giant Bear to the death. After the bear was frozen, it only lasted for a few seconds. Then, he reacted quickly and instinctively used his special ability to dissolve He Lang's ice attack. Bang! The fire energy directly exploded from its body, directly blasting the layer of ice that was sealing it. An ultra-high temperature and boiling fire energy exploded like a bomb, directly blasting a large pit with a diameter of tens of meters around it. The trees and rocks were all blown away. At the same time, the large number of icicles that He Lang had thrown over were also blown back. Waves of heat quickly spread out and quickly covered the surrounding cold air, blowing up the freezing scene created by He Lang just now. When the giant bear's fire ability exploded, Lin Xiao had already retreated from the range of the disaster. Looking at the charred land in front of him, there was a huge pit in the middle. In the blink of an eye, her expression changed. Because she felt that He Lang's aura had suddenly run a little far away from her. She did not know when he had run away. Maybe he had taken advantage of the moment when Giant Bear exploded and escaped along with its energy impact. This wolf was still very cautious. Seeing that the situation was not good, he immediately thought of a way to escape first. And before he left, he also used an old enemy, Giant Bear, to divert the attention of other enemies. One ran away, but there was still one left. No matter, she would first get rid of this one. In any case, it was a giant bear and it was quite fat. In addition to the beast core, she could also cut it into pieces and soak it in the spatial lake as rations for her zombie army. Lan Lu's reaction was a little slower than Lin Xiao's, and he was carrying a tall man who had fainted. But he also successfully avoided the situation of being hit by the high-temperature flames and quickly flashed to the other side. As soon as he stopped, he saw Lin Xiao suddenly rush towards the giant bear. The giant bear had just released all of its energy, and its whole body was so smooth that it wanted to shake its fur. Suddenly, a kind of wild beast instinct flashed in its heart. It quickly turned its head, and its two round eyes stared in Lin Xiao's direction. Lin Xiao rushed in front of it and jumped up. Then he waved his claws at the giant bear from above. At the same time, he made a huge black fireball and threw it at the giant bear. Roar Dash, seeing that Lin Xiao was actually waving his claws at it through the air. The giant bear was a little confused at first. Until the next second, it heard something breaking through the air, and a very sharp aura quickly approached it. Relying on its rough skin and thick flesh, the giant bear raised its two front claws and blocked its head. Puff puff dash, but soon, it felt a burst of pain on its two front limbs, as if something had cut into its flesh. Roar Dash, the giant bear's face was already distorted, and it howled in pain. It immediately shrank back and bent down on all fours. However, at this moment, a black fireball as big as its body came smashing at it. A level 8 mutated beast was much more durable than a level 7. The claws that Lin Xiao waved just now could directly cut down a tall building. However, on the giant bear's body, it could only cut off a little bit of its flesh, and the wound was not very deep. Fortunately, Lin Xiao's flame ability smashed onto the giant bear's body. Then, Lin Xiao landed on the empty ground next to him. He raised his hand and controlled his fireball to hit the giant bear's body. Then, the fireball suddenly opened and wrapped around the giant bear. Roar Dash, the giant bear, whose whole body was wrapped in Lin Xiao's black flame, felt an even stronger sense of crisis. It immediately struggled and began to run. At the same time, A layer of fiery red energy overflowed from its body, trying to push Lin Xiao's flame away like Black Wolf's ice ability. However, the result was different from before, when its fire elemental energy suddenly surged out of its body. The black flame wrapped around its body suddenly swelled up like a huge black ball. The black flame was not pushed away from its body. Instead, after it expanded, it quickly assimilated and absorbed the giant bear's energy into hostile energy. So the result was that when the giant bear ran around aimlessly, the black flame on its body burned bigger and bigger. Roar, bang, boom, dash, because the giant bear's line of sight was blocked. It quickly roared and ran out of the empty space it had just blasted open and hit the tree at the edge. The huge tree was easily knocked over by it, and it bounced to the ground and rolled a few times. Then, it struggled on the ground and roared angrily and anxiously. Roar, dash. Chapter 1138. The trees that were knocked down by the bear were also burned by the black flames on its body. Under the black flames, the leaves on the trees and the grass and shrubs on the ground quickly disappeared. The sand and stones on the ground were not spared as they were also melted. Lin Xiao used one hand to control the special ability flames on the bear's body, while his other hand began to pick up the other black flames around him and threw them back onto the bear's body. Roar. The bear was in a sorry state from Lin Xiao's hellfire's adhesion and devouring attributes. It rolled on the ground a few times and found that it was still unable to get rid of the hellfire on its body. It immediately stood up and roared angrily at the sky. Then the fire energy on its body that was originally used to resist Lin Xiao's hellfire suddenly shrunk and exploded in the next second. Bang! The fiery red energy exploded like a bomb, and the impact violently swept out in all directions. The explosion blasted a huge crater in the forest that was already in a mess. This time the pit was several times larger than the previous one, and the surrounding forest was once again blown up into pieces. The abilities released by the bear and the black wolf, as well as the ability released by Lin Xiao at the end, and then the two pits created by the bear had been blown up. The miasma in the area had been swept away, and the top of the dense forest had also been blasted open. Lin Xiao's hand that was controlling the hellfire trembled, as though it was shaken back. The black hellfire wrapped around the bear's body was completely blown up this time. The bear turned into a flaming bear, its whole body burning with intense red flames as it suddenly roared in Lin Xiao's direction. Roar! Lin Xiao raised his eyebrows. Although this giant bear was also at the 8th level, although this bear was also a level 8 mutant, it felt like it was still weaker than the mutant eyeless gorilla underground, although it had fire abilities. But even if it was weaker than De Zhuang, its strength was not bad. If Lin Xiao did not evolve her strength to level 8 before she set off this time, she would probably have to take a detour when facing this level 8 mutant beast. She watched as it angrily rushed towards her, looking as though it wanted to tear her into pieces and eat her. Lin Xiao's figure flashed and disappeared. On the other side, Lan Lu looked at her disappearing figure and sighed silently in his heart. This woman was like a cheat. Not long ago, her aura gave people the feeling that she was only at level 7. But now, she had already entered the state of level 8. The pressure from his aura was already stronger than his, but if they were to fight, he would probably be the one being abused. He was not a human metahuman, but a zombie. The aura of a rank 8 zombie emperor was much stronger than a rank 8 metahuman. Of course, his strength was also a notch higher. If a metahuman of the same level fought against a zombie, the zombie would be able to beat the metahuman to a pulp. Lin Xiao's sudden disappearance caused the huge fire bear to pause for 2 seconds when it reached her position. Roar, woo! It stood there and looked left and right, only to find that its target had suddenly disappeared. It became even angrier. It raised its head and roared again. Roar! At this time, Lin Xiao sneaked up to a position more than 10 meters behind the fire bear and felt a steady stream of heat coming from the fire bear. Lin Xiao's current zombie physique was very strange. She was most afraid of heat. Once she encountered high temperature, her whole body would not be able to stand it, and her whole brain would feel like it was burning. It was clearly a dead physique, but it was still so afraid of heat, but it was also not afraid of cold. She did not know what was going on. Maybe it was a side effect of being modified by the space lake. Although she was very afraid of heat when it came to carrying out an operation. Of course, Lin Xiao would not retreat or be affected by it. So when she sneaked up to the back of the fire bear, she continued to show her sharp claws. She quickly approached the back of the fire bear against the high temperature. When she was about 8 or 9 meters away, she suddenly jumped up and then landed on the back of the fire bear's neck. Waving her claws, she suddenly appeared. Her claws were also ignited with a black flame, and she stabbed towards the back of the fire bear's neck fiercely and accurately. Roar! Suddenly feeling an instinctive chill on its back, the fire bear was shocked and immediately turned around. But before it could turn halfway, it suddenly felt a huge pain on the side of its neck. A woo! The tragic howl of the fire bear once again resounded through the forest for a radius of 10 miles. Wei Haichao carried the unconscious Ho Guozhong and fled into the distance while paying attention to the movements on the battlefield just now. He heard the howl of the fire bear from time to time. He also felt a new and powerful aura, which shocked him. This aura was not inferior to the Blue Land's aura at all, indicating that it was another level 8 arcanist. But this aura was a little familiar yet strange. Although he could not remember who it was certainly not the aura of his leader or Wu Chongyue. Could it be that there was now another level 8 ability user in each of the major bases? But thinking about the level 7 arcanists in the major bases, who could possibly suddenly advance to level 8? At this time, Lin Kuei and the other 3 on the cliff not far from here quietly hid their existence. Not long after, a few more auras came from afar. One of them was very powerful, completely suppressing the 2 level 7 arcanists, Lin Kuei and Yan Huiguang. They were very clear that the strongest one was a level 8 arcanist, and he was also an arcanist. This was what Lin Kuei knew, and he immediately flashed to Duan Wan's side. Someone is coming, a level 8 arcanist. After arriving at Duan Wan's position, he pointed in the direction of the aura. Duan Wan was stunned and asked, "A level 8 arcanist? Leader Wu?" "No, Leader Wu shouldn't be here at this time. Could it be Xikong-chan?" Lin Kuei said directly, "It's not Wu Chongyue." He knew Wu Chengyue's aura and smell, but the other's aura, he was somewhat familiar, but he was sure that it was not Wu Chongyue. "You're right, it's Xikong-chen." He still remembered Xikong-chen's smell. Duan Wan's expression sank. Why is he here? Could it be that he is worried about the ability of his subordinates, so he came to do it himself? Thinking about it this way, it made sense. Under the protection of Lan Lu, a level 8 spirit arcanist, it would be difficult to take the level 9 arcanist's energy core without an opponent of the same level. Lin Kuei nodded and took off his shirt next to Duan Wan. Then black fur began to grow all over his body, and his face quickly twisted and changed into a round and short face of a big black panther. A strong and sturdy big black panther appeared next to Duan Wan, and then quickly left Duan Wan's side, leaping silently in the direction of Yan Huiguang. Only in this state could Lin Kuei's aura be more effectively hidden. At this time, Duan Wan immediately retreated in the direction of the navy. Before Lin Xiao went down, he told them to wait and see if there was any situation that did not involve them directly. So now that Xikong-chan was here, they could only immediately leave this place, lest the other party discover their auras first. Chapter 1139. More than 10 kilometers away from the cliff, a figure flew past at a low altitude at a high speed. Not far behind him were a few other figures. The tall figure in the lead quickly flew to the top of the cliff and looked at the traces of fighting around the cliff. Finally, he shifted his gaze to the bottom of the cliff. He narrowed his eyes and sensed the changes in the aura in the poisonous forest below. The energy fluctuations of the fight were too obvious. Among the several energy fluctuations, only the energy fluctuations of the level 9 arcanist were missing. There were 2 rank 8 arcanist human auras and 2 rank 8 mutant beast auras. One of them seemed to be running away, and its aura was a little far away from the battlefield. There was also the familiar aura of Wei Haichao, but Ho Guozhong was nowhere to be seen. Xikong-chen frowned, his calm eyes revealing a puzzled look, his tough face expressionless as he looked down the cliff into the distance. In addition to the energy aura of an arcanist disappearing after death, the aura of an unconscious arcanist would also disappear. For a rank 8 ability user like Sikong-chan, he would only be able to sense the faint aura of an unconscious person when he was within 100 meters of them. That was why Sikong-chan sent Wei Haichao and Ho Guozhong to act together. Now, he could only sense Wei Haichao's aura, but not Ho Guozhong's. That could only mean that Ho Guozhong was either dead or in a coma. Putting Ho Guozhong aside, what about the rank 9 arcanist? Was he dead or unconscious? Now, the aura fluctuations from below told him that a rank 8 arcanist was fighting with a rank 8 mutant beast. The aura of this rank 8 arcanist was a little familiar yet strange, but Sikong-chan could not remember who he was. Lan Lu's aura was very calm, and he did not seem to be involved in the fight. Then who was the level 8 arcanist in the fight? This aura was also a little familiar, and he should have seen the other party before. But who was it? If the other party was a rank 8 arcanist when he first saw him, then he would definitely pay more attention, and not be unable to remember who he was now. If the other party was a rank 7 arcanist before, then he would not have cared, but now which rank 7 arcanist in the country had advanced? There were not many rank 7 arcanists in the major bases, but that did not include those hidden. Since it felt familiar, he must have seen it before. Sikong-chan frowned as he tried to figure out who this aura belonged to. Was it someone from the 3 bases? After all, apart from Li Jingye, the other rank 7 metahumans were either dead or missing, but Sikong-chan recognized their auras. It wasn't from the northeast or the north, so it could only be from East China. Apart from the 2 level 7 leaders of Ocean City, there was only that woman from Universal Base. Thinking of the female leader of the Universal Base, Sikong-chan immediately recognized the aura of the level 8 metahuman fighting the mutant beasts. It was the female leader who came with Wu Changyue during the previous zombie wave outbreak in China. Boom, bang, roar. From time to time, explosions and tremors could be heard, as well as the roars of wild beasts. There were even some billowing black smoke rising from the other side. Sikong-chan was very familiar with the aura of that mutant beast. It was the same fire attribute as him. Since it was also a fire element, it should belong to him. Everyone who saw it had a share. That woman was not a fire element. She wouldn't be of much use anyway. However, since she was willing to help him weaken the level 8 mutant beast, then he would let her fight it first. In any case, a level 8 metahuman against a level 8 mutant beast would not have a high chance of winning. If he could not get the level 9 energy core, obtaining the level 8 fire beast core was not bad either. However, there was still the blue land that he needed to pay attention to. After sensing this fire-type mutant beast, Sikong-chan had already made it his second target. Just as he was standing at the top of the cliff and analyzing the situation by following the aura in the distance, a few figures landed beside him. A level 7 metahuman and 4 level 6 metahumans. These 5 people rarely appeared in public in China. Other than Sikong-chan, not many people knew of their existence and strength. Didn't you say that there was only one level 8 metahuman? Why is there another one? The level 7 metahuman was a woman. After landing beside Sikong-chan, she looked at the direction of the energy fluctuations coming from below the cliff and asked. This woman had a very delicate and charming face. There was no makeup on her face, but her eyes were charming and alluring. Sexy lips, a straight nose, and exquisite facial features were unforgettable. Her long hair was slightly curled behind her, and she wore a beret on her head. She wore a black military uniform with a corset on her upper body, revealing her slender waist. On her lower body, she wore short hot pants that just wrapped around her buttocks and a pair of black knee-high boots. Her snow-white, smooth, and long legs were exposed to the air. Her legs were long and straight. The upper half of her body was ascetic, but the lower half was seductive. When put together, it was a seductive beauty with extreme temptation. With a height of nearly 1.8 meters, coupled with a sharp aura, her presence and aura had completely suppressed her own strength. She stood beside Sikong-chan, but when she spoke to him, she did not have the slightest bit of respect. Sikong-chun did not mind, as if he was used to her tone. You may have heard of the female leader of the Universal Base. Oh, it's her? TSK. Let me see what this beautiful leader who suddenly appeared looks like. When she heard Sikong-chan say that it was the female leader of the Universal Base, the woman's alluring eyes immediately lit up, and a sharp light flashed in them. At the same time, an imposing aura immediately rose from her body. Sikong-chun glanced at her indifferently and said, "This woman is not as simple as you think, and she has already broken through to level 8 so quickly. You should be careful." The woman's plump lips curled up, and she raised her hand to wipe the bangs that fell on her forehead. She raised a captivating smile and said, "It's only interesting not to be simple, isn't it? If it's too simple, wouldn't it be boring?" Seeing her say so, Sikong-chun sighed and did not say anything more. Instead, he ordered, "In that case, I'll go find a level 9 metahuman later. You go and help me snatch that level 8 fire-type beast core." The smile on the woman's face turned into a light breeze and said, "No problem. Don't worry. I'd like to see how capable this woman, who has been pursued by Wu Chungyue for so long, is." Hearing her words, except for Sikong-chun, the 4 metahumans behind him silently looked at each other. At the same time, a gloating light flashed in their eyes. Chapter 1140. While Lin Qiao was torturing the fire bear, he suddenly felt the aura of a level 8 arcanist coming from the direction of the cliff. After a while, there was an additional level 7 arcanist and 4 level 6 arcanists' auras. She kicked the giant bear into the air, then glanced in the direction of Sikong-chen's aura. In the next second, she suddenly disappeared and flashed into the air. She quickly stretched out her claws and slashed at the wound on the side of the giant bear's neck. Roar! The fire bear immediately fell to the ground after being slashed by her. Although it had suffered a lot of injuries, they were not fatal. What made it panic was Lin Qiao's hellfire that wrapped around it every chance she got. The giant bear's movements were also very agile, but it had no way of defending against Lin Qiao, who could turn invisible and appear and disappear unpredictably. It felt more and more wounds on its body, and the energy in its energy core was getting lesser and lesser. The fire bear gradually wanted to retreat, thinking that it had to find an opportunity to escape as soon as possible. However, it did not know that at this time, Lin Qiao had sensed Sikong-chen's aura. She immediately decided to deal with this fire bear as soon as possible. Even if she could not kill it, she had to throw it into her space and hide it first. But to throw it into her space, she had to touch the bear's body with her hands, and she could not do it through energy. She had to wait until the energy flames on the bear's body disappeared. Seeing that the flames on the fire bear had weakened a lot, Lin Qiao, who was still in the air, had a fierce look in her eyes. The white of her eyes quickly turned black. The aura around her body also began to change and become stronger. Her long hair was shaken by the energy fluctuations in her body and flew backwards, fluttering behind her. She stretched out her hands and spread her fingers, quickly releasing a large amount of black flames towards the giant bear. One after another, black flames rushed out of her hands and transformed into a fire dragon. Then, it bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it pounced towards the fire bear at the speed of a gust of wind. Roar! In the blink of an eye, the fire bear was swallowed by the black fire dragon released by Lin Qiao and disappeared into the black fire dragon's mouth. The black fire dragon released by Lin Qiao was too fast. It was so fast that the bear did not even have time to react before it was swallowed. After controlling the black fire dragon to swallow the fire bear, Lin Qiao's hands immediately formed a ball in the air in front of him. Following the movements of her hands, the black fire dragon immediately shrank and melted into a ball. Then it shrunk smaller and smaller, becoming more solid and heavy. The black fireball was no longer emitting flames. Instead, it slowly formed into a strange black ball that was constantly moving up and down on its surface. Lin Qiao quickly pressed her palms against each other. It was as if there was an invisible energy ball between her hands that she was forcefully squeezing. Roar, roar, roar. Under Lin Qiao's control, It turned into a huge black ball with a diameter of 10 meters. After all, it was a level 8 mutated beast. It was not so easy to kill it. Although Lin Xiao's special ability energy was very special and terrifying, Lin Xiao's ability energy was very special and terrifying. If not for her physique as a zombie emperor, she would not have been able to suppress this mutant bear. Therefore, in order to completely suppress this mutant bear as soon as possible, Lin Xiao was trying his best. While she was trying her best to suppress the mutant bear in the black ball, she was also paying attention to the direction of the cliff. When she felt that they were starting to move towards her, Lin Xiao's heart began to sink. At this moment, it was impossible for Lan Lu to abandon his leader and run over to help her stop Sikong Chun. He even had to be on guard against Sikong Chun attacking his leader. She felt that the giant bear in her black ball was struggling violently. It was really tough and there was still a lot of energy in its body. Lin Xiao had a bad premonition. She frowned. She felt that the opponent was getting closer and closer. Even if she wanted to kill this giant bear, there was no time. She couldn't directly put it into her spatial ring. Then, she could only face Sikong Chun head-on. In any case, he definitely did not come with good intentions. She turned around and faced the direction that Sikong Chun was moving towards. She looked over there expressionlessly. Instead, she used one hand to suppress the black ball with all her strength. Then, she put her other finger in her mouth and whistled. In an instant, more than 10 figures appeared beside her. Lan Lu also brought his unconscious leader to her side. They come with bad intentions. I didn't think that Sikong Chun would think so highly of our leader. Lan Lu landed on the ground a few meters away from Lin Xiao. On his shoulder was a level 9 metahuman who was slightly taller than him, Dong Xiaowei. His face was the same as Lin Xiao's as he faced Sikong Chun. It should be said that your leader's level 9 energy core is too attractive. Not only are there humans, but there are also mutated beasts and even zombies. Lin Xiao's eyes flashed coldly. Zombies? Do you mean you guys? Lan Lu heard her last sentence and looked at her strangely. Then he glanced at the zombies behind her. Lin Xiao said, "Why are you pretending to be stupid? I don't believe that you can't sense that there are others nearby besides the ones I have." Although calling Mo, Yi Qingxian, Jing Yan and Yan Xiao to her side wouldn't be of much use against Sikong Chun, they could still block the level 6 humans behind Sikong Chun. Mo, Qingxian, Old 6, Xie Dong. The 4 of you take 2 people each and take care of the 4 weakest ones behind Sikong Chun. Lin Xiao calmly ordered. Yes. The 4 who were called immediately responded. Lan Lu looked around. Indeed, as Lin Xiao said, there was an aura of high-level zombies approaching from a few dozen kilometers away. It's coming, Lin Xiao suddenly said. Xiao dash a sound pierced through the air. A metallic light shot towards Lin Xiao at a speed that the naked eye couldn't see clearly. Lin Xiao suddenly raised his hand and waved. Chong bang dash. The sound of metal colliding with each other was accompanied by a flash of sparks from Lin Xiao's movement. Bang chi. A long sword that looked like a tang sword stabbed into the ground at an angle. The sharp light on the blade flashed and the murderous aura was overflowing. If I'm not wrong, did you just block my sword with your bare hands? A woman's voice sounded. Her tone was filled with surprise and certainty. Lin Xiao turned his head and saw a woman wearing a black military uniform with long legs. He didn't know when she had appeared next to the sword. The woman's face looked very young, her figure was very good, and she was also very tall. Her facial features were charming, and she had a pair of naturally attractive eyes. She bent down slightly and reached out to grab the hilt of the long knife. With a slight tug, she picked up the knife. Then, she swung it over her shoulder and looked at Lin Xiao with an excited expression. Chapter 1141. Looking at the woman carrying a saber, Lin Xiao also sized her up expressionlessly. Then, she shifted her gaze to Sikong Chun, who had appeared beside her. So Chief C has such a beauty hidden by your side. You're really lucky. But why are the 2 of you here? Lin Xiao didn't answer the woman's question. Instead, she asked Sikong Chun with a smile. This woman already had the strength of a rank 7. But Lin Xiao had never received any information about her. It was obvious that Sikong Chun had hidden her very well, or rather, she had hidden herself very well. Sikong Chun glanced at Lan Lu and said, I heard that there's a rank 8 fire-type beast here. I came to see if I could pick it up. In this kind of situation, he would definitely not admit his previous purpose, and he would also put it nicely. What did he mean by picking it up? He actually wanted to steal it. Lin Xiao, of course, understood what he meant. She turned her head and looked at the fire-type bear that she was still suppressing. A woo! The black ball's giant bear was still roaring, but it couldn't break the black ball's restraint. Lin Xiao couldn't absorb all of its energy at once, but she could still suppress it with all her might. She turned her head and sneered at Sikong Chen. Looks like Chief C has to go somewhere further to see if there's anything to pick up. Currently, this fire-type bear is in my hands. I don't think Chief C will snatch it from me, right? Then, she stared at Sikong Chan with a flash of light in her eyes. Of course we won't snatch it. I don't think you can kill this bear by yourself. Why don't you give it to us? That way, it won't run away and no one will get it. The woman with the saber said with a seductive smile. She clearly didn't take Lin Xiao's behavior of ignoring her to heart. Lin Xiao looked at her with a smile on her face. He said, Miss, may I ask why I should give my prey to you? How do you know I can't kill it by myself? Don't worry, I can do it. Can you give me a reasonable reason to give it to you? Don't you have injured people here? Why don't you bring them back for treatment? Aren't you afraid of wasting time? Sikong Chun looked at Lan Lu before the woman could answer. Lan Lu shrugged and said, Chief C is right. Although he said so, he didn't take any action. As Lin Xiao's palm spoke, it kept increasing its control over the black ball. What other reason do you need? The law of nature, the law of the jungle. The prey would naturally belong to whoever had the ability. You said you have the ability to kill it, but why is it still alive? Since you can't do it, why don't you let me do it? The woman said again. Before she finished speaking, she suddenly put down the knife in her hand. In a flash, he rushed towards Lin Xiao and swung his long saber at her. Lin Xiao frowned. His other free hand suddenly waved at her. Black flames surged out from her hands again, and instantly turned into thousands of small fire snakes. They scattered and twisted as they surrounded the woman in a fan-shaped encirclement. The woman suddenly saw Lin Xiao shoot out countless small fire snakes, and her eyes were slightly startled. She thought that Lin Xiao was already using all his strength to control the level 8 fire bear, so he wouldn't have any spare energy to deal with her. Although her blade had been blocked by the other party with his bare hands, she still thought it was a coincidence. Now that she saw Lin Xiao shoot out so many black fire snakes to surround her, she immediately waved the knife in her hand and slashed at the fire snakes in front of her. Then her figure flashed and suddenly disappeared into thin air. After she disappeared, Lin Xiao's eyebrows immediately twitched. In the next second, without any warning, she suddenly swung her free hand upwards and slapped above her head. Bang dash! The sound of metal colliding was heard. Suddenly, the knife that was coming down from Lin Xiao's head was slapped away by her in time. The long knife spun and flew out, but before it fell to the ground, it was immediately caught by someone in a flash. Lin Xiao was a level 8 zombie emperor, and she used one hand to deal with a level 7 metahuman. She wasn't worried at all. She was only wary of Sikong Chun. Moreover, this woman's knife attack seemed to be just a test, and she didn't use her full strength. Not bad, you do have some skills. After the woman caught the knife, she disappeared again and instantly appeared next to Sikong Chen. She nodded at Lin Xiao and said. Lin Xiao didn't respond to her words, but controlled the flames of the devouring bear to increase its power. Roar dash! The giant bear's voice became somewhat painful. At this time, the woman turned to Sikong Chan and asked, By the way, didn't you say that her ability was poison? How did it become fire now? Sikong Chan expressionlessly looked in the direction of Lin Xiao and Lan Lu, and replied, It might be a mutation. Hearing the giant bear scream, he didn't seem worried at all. Although they were sure that they wanted to steal the bear, he didn't seem to care that Lin Xiao killed the bear. Lin Xiao saw that the other party didn't seem to want to fight, so she flashed and appeared above the giant bear's fireball. The woman looked at Lin Xiao and suddenly said with a smile, "You are very beautiful." Lin Xiao calmly nodded to her. "Thank you." The woman continued to smile and said, "My name is Xiaolong Yun. I know you. I heard that a year ago you were just an ordinary person, and you relied on the protection of a man to survive. But it's only been a year, and you're already a level 8 arcanist. It's really amazing." When Xiaolong Yun said these words, her tone was very calm. It didn't seem like she was mocking the former Lu Tianyu, nor the current Lin Xiao. It was like a very ordinary sentence, without a trace of ambiguity. It didn't make people feel annoyed or have a bad feeling. But Lin Xiao felt the disdain in the depths of her mind, as well as the hidden sense of contempt. Lin Xiao's expression didn't change, and she still looked at her with a faint smile. He said to her, "So." Xiaolong Yun propped the knife in her hand on the ground, touched the long hair behind her shoulder with her other hand, and said, "No, I'm just curious. Don't you think this is something that ordinary people can't do? Think about it, it took some people 7 years to reach this level." As she said that, she glanced at Sikong Chun and Lan Lu meaningfully. When she said this, Sikong Chun and Lan Lu both looked at Lin Xiao. It was just that the meaning in their eyes was different. Sikong Chen's eyes were in agreement, but Lan Lu was somewhat unclear. She was a zombie with human memories. As long as her will was strong, leveling up generally wouldn't fail. Only when those ordinary zombies leveled up, their consciousness was too weak, so they would fail. Chapter 1142. Just as Lin Xiao and Sikong Chun were confronting each other in the northwest, the surface of Tai Lake in East China surged again. One after another, mutated beasts the size of water buffaloes, with horns on their heads, resembling both lizards and crocodiles, emerged from the water and swam towards the lake. The number of mutated beasts that emerged from the water grew more and more, appearing all around the lake. The huge lake covered an area of over 2,000 square kilometers, and its edge was connected to the borders of a few towns and cities. Nobody could see that the bottom of the lake was piled up with layers of mutated fish bones, and the entire water body could no longer feel the presence of a single living fish. These mutated beasts that resembled lizards crawled out from the water, and a large number of them swam out from the surrounding tributaries of the lake. Almost all the mutated fish in the river that they passed through were hunted clean, and even the animals within 10 meters of the riverbank were eaten. As long as they dared to approach, they would be silently bitten to death. The thick and sturdy limbs of these lizards were very agile, and their bodies were also soft and agile. Furthermore, they did not emit any presence. Therefore, the other mutated beasts could not feel the threat of these things in the water at all. They had 4 rows of sharp teeth in their mouths, 2 rows on the top and 2 rows on the bottom. The ghastly appearance of these mutated beasts clearly showed what kind of prey they could chew, and once bitten, it would be impossible to escape. Following the appearance of these underwater mutated beasts, many ugly insects with cracked skin and small flames started to crawl out of the volcanoes in the northeast and North China. These insects were huge, and there were scorpions the size of wash basins, and there were also giant spiders with legs that were 2 meters long. There were even large ants. These huge insects all carried a strong fire attribute, which could be seen from the cracks on their shells and the undying flames on their bodies. Scorpions only had one color. They were all black, and there were red cracks on their hard shells. As for spiders, there were many colors such as red, purple, green, black, gray, and so on. They crawled out of the volcanoes in dense groups and started to spread out in all directions. Ants also only had one color, a transparent fiery red. The larger ones were 2 meters long, and the smaller ones were only 1 meter long. They dragged 2 fat bellies, and there was a layer of flashing red fur on their bellies. These 3 types of giant insects were different from the normal insects on the ground. Other scorpions only had 1 pair of pincers, but it had 3. Swoosh, 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 it brandished its 6 pincers and charged forward. The spiders on the ground all had 8 legs, but there were only 6 here, because the 2 in front had already turned into giant pincers like scorpions. The spider with a pair of giant pincers ran faster than the wind with its 6 2-meter-long legs. As for the ant army, there were only 2 of them lined up side by side, and they all looked exactly the same. Its stomach was still glowing red, and with its shiny red fur, it looked like a pair of red vertical eyes in the night. Apart from Lake Tai, Northeast China, and North China, which had strange beasts crawling onto the ground, the other places were showing different degrees of abnormalities. The only similarity was that these things crawled out from the ground. There were enormous earthworms, as well as 4-eyed canine-type beasts that looked like wolves and were bald from head to toe. They came in all shapes and sizes. At this time, not far from the base, De Zhuang, who was sleeping soundly in the cave, suddenly raised its head. He twitched his nose, got up suddenly, and immediately crawled out of his cave. Then, it stood at the entrance of its cave and sniffed around for a while before suddenly roaring. Roar. After roaring, it immediately broke into a run, but it was running outside. It roared as it ran, and the roar came from the underground tunnel. Roar, roar, roar. Roar, roar, roar. When the other underground gorillas heard its roar, they immediately began to run out. They all ran toward the tunnel on the ground. Even though it was daytime, they had no intention of stopping. Roar, roar, roar. Then, there was a slight tremor and the roar of beasts coming from underground. Not long after, Elmar, who was in charge of paying attention to them on the ground, moved her ears. She turned her head to look at the hole that Lin Xiao had told her about and listened carefully. Huh? Why does it sound like those things are coming out? She sniffed and then looked up at the sky. Is it because there is no sunlight today? The weather was gloomy today, and a thick layer of clouds blocked the sunlight. Even though Elmar had such thoughts in her heart, she still dashed towards the entrance of the cave. When she arrived, a familiar earthy smell assailed her nostrils. Elmar immediately covered her nose and her expression darkened. They are really coming out. After all, if those guys came out, it meant that it was definitely not peaceful. At this time, the underground gorillas had already rushed to the cave entrance. Due to their leader's orders, they could only run to one of the caves. They didn't know why they didn't go to the other caves. However, these underground gorillas wouldn't guess their leader's intentions. Anyway, their leader's orders were orders and they had to obey. But when they reached the cave entrance and saw the light shining in from outside, they immediately became terrified. They piled up under the shadow of the cave entrance, and no one was willing to take a step forward. Roar, roar. Even though there was no sunlight outside, the light still felt threatening. De Zhuang was stuck in the middle and couldn't move up or down. He immediately roared angrily and urged them. Roar, roar, roar. Hence, the group of gorillas at the outermost entrance could only tremble for a while before rushing out of the cave. Then, they screamed and instinctively looked for cover. For example, the trees and buildings around the cave entrance. When the sunlight shone on their bodies, the effect wasn't as obvious as the sunlight. However, the underground gorillas immediately screamed, indicating that they were not unharmed. Elmar stood on the roof of a nearby building and watched as the underground gorillas risked their lives to rush out in broad daylight. She didn't know what was going on. Roar, roar, roar. After the underground gorillas ran out of the cave, the area was immediately filled with the undulating roars of beasts. A large number of underground gorillas hopped quickly to a place that they thought was safe, such as a dark place like a forest or a building. After a while, Elmar saw the big guy rushing out. Its reaction wasn't as big as the other low-level gorillas. It stood at the cave entrance and raised its head to sniff. Roar, roar. It lowered its head to look at its body before walking slowly into the surrounding forest. After watching for a while, Elmar realized that the high-level gorillas didn't have any reaction. It was the low-level gorillas that were howling like ghosts as though they were about to die. The big guys, as well as the level 5, 6, and 7 gorillas, were calmer. Chapter 1143. She stood on the roof and watched for a while. She found that after the gorillas ran out of the cave, they only hid in the nearby woods and buildings. Then they shivered and didn't move. Elmar scratched his head like a monk. She looked at them with a confused face. What's wrong with them? Why do they look like they were driven out of the ground? Did I see it wrong? At the edge of the forest, the big guy was lying down lazily in the shade, not going anywhere. What was in the cave that made them not sleep in the day and run out to hide? After observing for a while, Elmar retreated a certain distance and whistled. An old man appeared next to her and said with dissatisfaction, "Can you change the way to call people next time? You whistle every time." "Am I a puppy?" Elmar glared at him angrily. "I didn't say anything. You were the one who said, puppy." Gizergwa reached out and smacked her on the head with a loud smack. "Ow, you smelly old man." Elmar immediately bared her teeth at Old Gwa and roared at him. "Little girl, you don't know how to respect the old." Oldman Gwa didn't care about her crazy look at all. Anyway, the little girl didn't release her level 7 zombie breath. Then he calmly turned to the entrance of the gorilla's cave. He sniffed and asked, "Don't they only move at night? Why are they out in the day?" Elmar's expression returned to normal. She shrugged and said, "I don't know what's going on. I've been out for a while. They just hid in the shadows around the entrance and didn't go anywhere. I thought there was something in the ground that chased them out." Old Gwa looked around for a while and estimated the number of gorillas that ran to the ground. He said, "This number is probably all of them? What do you think drove them out?" Elmar shrugged. "I'm just guessing. But there's only the smell of gorillas in the cave, nothing else." Old Gwa thought for a while and said, "How long do you think they are going to stay?" Elmar rolled her eyes. "How would I know? Let's take a look at the situation first before sending it back to the base. The leader isn't here anyway," Gizergwa said as he stood with his back hunched. His tang suit was still clean and tidy, and his white hair was combed to the back of his head. If he hadn't rubbed Elmar's head, he would have looked like an old man. "Pa." Elmar couldn't stand it anymore. She raised her hand and slapped his hand away from her head. She said discontentedly, "Can you stop rubbing my head? Is it fun? Are you an old man? I think you're a kid. He's even more childish than Asi." Old Man Gwa chuckled and sighed. "It's because I'm an old man that I want to touch your heads. They're like my grandchildren." In the Universal Base, Yuan Tianxing, Lin Feng, and the others were still frowning. They still had no clue as to why Lin Wenwen had disappeared. Wu Chengyue was cooking in Lin Qiao's kitchen, while the two children were playing by themselves in the living room. Little Tung Tung climbed down from the sofa and climbed back to the sofa from under the carpet. He climbed from one end of the sofa to the other. Anyway, he couldn't stop. Little Lingling sat on the single sofa and quietly drew with a drawing board. She looked up at Little Tung Tung from time to time. Seeing that he wouldn't break himself, she silently lowered her head and continued to draw. "Papa, are you done? I'm hungry." After climbing from under the carpet to the sofa for the 20th time, Little Tung Tung finally stopped and shouted to the kitchen, "It's almost done. Wait a minute." Wu Qingyue's voice came from the kitchen. Hearing Little Tung Tung's shout, Wu Yueling raised her eyes and looked at Little Tung Tung. Then she thought about it and put down the drawing board. She ran to the refrigerator and took out a few strawberries. Then she returned to Little Tung Tung and handed them to him. Little Tung Tung took one and put it in his mouth. His teeth hadn't grown out yet. But the strawberry flesh was very soft. He could bite it with his gums and then he could suck the juice inside. Seeing that Little Tung Tung had eaten one, Wu Yueling also put one into her mouth and ate. After a while, Wu Chengyue came out with the dishes and placed them on the table. He said to the two children, "All right, come and eat." Wu Yueling stood up and picked up Little Tung Tung from the sofa. She walked towards the dining table. Little Tung Tung said, "Papa, you're getting slower and slower to cook." Wu Chengyue looked at him speechlessly. "It's obviously your appetite that's getting bigger and bigger. My timing is very accurate, okay? It's you who's hungry too quickly. What does it have to do with me?" Wu Yueling placed Little Tung Tung on his exclusive baby chair. Little Tung Tung said, "Because you won't let me eat my fill. I'm going to tell Mama." Wu Chengyue said to him with a smile, "Then tell me which meal I didn't give you?" Little Tung thought about it. It seemed that he had never eaten his fill. However, he was really hungry now. It seemed that his body was growing fast. "Where do you think your aunt went? He disappeared so suddenly. I don't know when he will come back," Wu Chungyue said with a sigh while serving him porridge. "Mama, if Auntie still doesn't come back when she comes back, I'll go to the hospital. Then Mama will have to worry again." Little Tung Tung also sighed, then picked up a small spoon and began to eat the porridge. "Your mama probably won't be back so soon." Wu Chungyue put some food into Wu Yueling's bowl and continued. "She still needs to collect a large number of energy nuclei and capture high-level zombies to expand her army." Little Tung Tung looked at him doubtfully. "How do you know she will do this? Did Mama tell you before?" Wu Chungyue smiled and said, "No, she didn't. It's just my guess. I don't think her main purpose in going to the Northwest is to join in the fun." Little Tung Ting nodded as if he understood. Oh, on the other side, Lin Xiao finally understood Xikong Chen's intention. This guy was waiting for her to finish off the giant bear before suddenly attacking and stealing the kill. That was a good idea. It was quite sinister. However, if he wanted to steal the kill from her, that would depend on whether he had the ability or not. However, this also helped Lin Xiao's hand move, allowing her to absorb a large amount of energy released by the bear. Roar, roar, dash. The giant bear's energy was constantly being devoured by the black flames in Lin Xiao's black ball. It felt a large amount of energy being lost, and the corroded wounds on its body were hurting. The feeling of weakness made it very panicked, but it couldn't escape from the fireball. No matter how the giant bear released the energy in its body or used its claws to scratch, it couldn't break the black flames. Could only roar loudly. Chapter 1144. Lin Xiao suddenly retracted the fireball under her feet and landed it on the bear's body. At this time, the bear's body no longer had any fire elemental energy. Lin Xiao had also burned several large holes in its fur, revealing pieces of flesh. Bang! The giant bear fell to the ground and was on the verge of death. Lin Xiao got down from its body and used her hand to retract it. Then, his figure flashed and he disappeared on the spot. She directly dodged the level 8 energy fireball that Xikong Chun suddenly threw. Half a second later, she appeared on the other side of the ground. Boom dash! The fireball exploded at the place where she and the bear were just a moment ago. "It's gone. You're also a space elemental?" Xia Longyun saw that Lin Xiao just touched the bear and it disappeared. She immediately widened her eyes in shock and stared at Lin Xiao with some disbelief. "You guys said so much. Aren't you waiting for me to help you reduce the monster's HP to its skin?" Lin Xiao stood there calmly with one hand in her pocket and the other throwing a small black fireball the size of a fist. She looked at the woman and laughed mockingly. Now that the monster was directly retracted into her space, unless these two people could let her voluntarily release the prey. Otherwise, even killing her would be useless. Besides, she didn't know where these two people got their confidence from. From just a moment ago, they looked like they had really succeeded. Even if Lan Lu didn't help, she was still a level 8 zombie emperor. If they directly attacked, she would have to control the bear and deal with them at the same time. It would be really hard to say. She didn't expect that after these two people came, they would actually stand there and talk so much to her. Xikong Chun looked at the empty place where the bear was just a moment ago, and his expression instantly became gloomy. Then, he swept a glance at the blue land and let out a snort. "Let's go." He didn't expect this woman to still have space, and even more so, he didn't expect her to be able to completely suppress the level 8 mutant bear. Just how strong was she? A level 8 mutant beast and its attack power can directly raise a small town to the ground. How can a level 8 human ability user suppress it? From the moment he arrived here and saw that the bear was completely suppressed by this woman, he had already seen the situation clearly. If Lan Lu didn't make a move and just watched the woman suppress the bear, she would definitely use up a large amount of energy. In the end, when the energy of both sides canceled each other out, he would be able to take the opportunity to enter. He thought that the bear would be able to hold on for a long time, but he didn't expect the woman to finish it off so quickly. Since she had already put the prey into her space, Sikong-chan still had a chance to fight with her and force her to hand over the bear if she was the only one left. But with Lan Lu beside him, he didn't have the chance. Therefore, he made a prompt decision and turned around to leave. However, as soon as he turned around, a figure flashed in front of him and blocked his way. Lin Xiao still had one hand in his pocket and the other was playing with the fireball. However, he smiled and said, "You can come and go as you please. Leader C, it's not nice of you to leave like this. Since you're already here, why don't you pay the entrance fee? Don't go too far. Do you think you can make us pay the entrance fee?" Xiaolong Yun looked at Lin Xiao disdainfully, pointed at her and scolded her. Lin Xiao didn't even look at her and just stared at Sikong-chan with a faint smile. Although there was a faint smile on the corner of her mouth, everyone could see the cold glint in her eyes. This Xiaolong Yun looked down on Lu Tianyu from the bottom of her heart. So she had been mocking Lin Xiao from the bottom of her heart, trying to arouse Lin Xiao's negative emotions. If the person standing in front of her was the real Lu Tianyu, she might have a reaction. However, she wasn't Lu Tianyu, she was Lin Xiao. Therefore, she directly ignored this woman's sarcasm. This meant that she looked down on the other party even more than Xiaolong Yun and was completely dismissive. Seeing that she ignored her like this, Xiaolong Yun finally couldn't help but get angry. With a flick of her hand, she threw the long hair in her hand out. Then, the knife suddenly disintegrated in mid-air, turning into sharp blades that shot towards Lin Xiao. Lin Xiao calmly flicked the fireball in her hand out. The fireball quickly expanded and turned into a huge round tiger head. The tiger's mouth opened wide and swallowed most of the flying knives that Xiaolong Yun shot. "Come back!" Just as Xiaolong Yun rushed out in a flash, Sikong-chan suddenly shouted. On Lin Xiao's side, she suddenly shouted, "Do it!" Then Xiaodong and the zombies that had been quietly guarding behind her immediately split up and rushed towards the few level 6 psychics that Sikong-chan brought. Xiaolong Yun saw that Lin Xiao had used her ability to swallow her blades and immediately swung her hand. The remaining blades began to grow larger and longer, and then continued to break down into more sharp blades. She used her hands to control the attack trajectory of these blades and continued to shoot towards Lin Xiao. In the eyes of ordinary people, the naked eye could no longer see the shadows of these blades that she was controlling. Only people at Lin Xiao's level of strength could clearly see these blades. And in her eyes, the speed of these blades was very slow. Lin Xiao's eyes flashed as she waved her hand again. The tiger head turned again, opened its mouth and circled around Lin Xiao at a speed that was several times faster than the flying knives, swallowing all the flying knives that were shooting towards her. Then a black flying fire snake disappeared from Lin Xiao's hand in a blink of an eye, and then quietly appeared behind Xiaolong Yun. Just as the black fire snake was about to attack Xiaolong Yun from the back of her head, suddenly a red fire snake jumped out from the side and rushed towards the black fire snake that Lin Xiao released. Two different types of energy collided, and the two fire snakes of different colors twisted together and began to bite each other. Xiaolong Yun quickly turned around and dodged. Her heart was shocked. If it wasn't for Sikong-chen's quick action, she would have been hit by the black fire snake behind her, and the consequences could be imagined. Sikong-chan appeared beside her in a flash, grabbed her arm and disappeared again. Lin Xiao did not chase after them, but stood in the same place and quietly sensed the aura of Sikong-chan and the woman gradually getting further away. The 4 rank 6 metahumans that Sikong-chan brought were now facing the attacks of Mo, Xiaodong, and the others. They couldn't escape even if they wanted to. Seeing their leader leave without looking back, they knew that if they wanted to survive, they could only rely on their own abilities. After 2 minutes, Lin Xiao flashed into the space to deal with the bear. The giant bear that was thrown into the space lost even more of its ability to resist under Lin Xiao's complete control of the space. In less than a minute, Lin Xiao had obtained its beast core. She then took its corpse out of the space and found a place to skin it. "This fur is already rotten. Why are you still skinning it?" Lan Lu saw that Lin Xiao was skinning the bear and thought that she wanted the skin. But Lin Xiao calmly said, "Who said I want the skin? I want meat." Lan Lu asked in confusion, "You want meat? What do you want the meat of a mutant beast for? It's not like you can eat it." Who said I can't? I want to use it as rations for the zombie army. Lin Xiao said without turning her head. Lan Lu. She suddenly became speechless. Chapter 1145. After Sikong Chun left with Xialong Yun, he appeared at Wei Haichao's place. Leader. Wei Haichao greeted him when he saw Sikong Chun. His eyes lit up when he saw Xialong Yun beside him. He asked in surprise, "This is?" "Black Ops, Xialong Yun." Sikong Chun introduced him but didn't introduce Wei Haichao to Xialong Yun. She knew him anyway. Wei Haichao took another look at Xialong Yun and smiled at her. Xialong Yun nodded at him expressionlessly as a greeting. "Didn't I tell you to be careful? Why are you so aggressive?" Sikong Chun said to Xialong Yun disapprovingly. Xialong Yun replied coldly, "Am I? I was just testing her." Although she was a little upset just now. Sikong Chun looked at her expressionlessly and snorted. "I think you're just jealous of her. You women are so troublesome." Xialong Yun immediately raised her eyebrows and looked at him disdainfully. "I'm jealous of her? Is she prettier than me? Are her legs as long as mine? Is her waist as thin as mine? Tis." Sikong Chun looked at her quietly. "But he doesn't look any worse than you." Wei Haichao suddenly muttered at the side at this time. Xialong Yun and Sikong Chun looked at him at the same time. Wei Haichao immediately shut up and looked elsewhere. Sikong Chun also said, "Her waist is thinner than yours and her chest is bigger than yours." After saying that, he glanced at Xialong Yun's chest. Xialong Yun immediately exploded. She raised her hand and swung her hair. She said with her chest out, "So what? Could it be that I am in an airport? Is this the time to talk about this? You two perverts. You were the one who said it first." Sikong Chun and Wei Haichao muttered to themselves. "Let's not talk about this first. What's wrong with your information? You didn't even know her ability? She's a fire poison type, okay? Who said she's a poison mist type? And she's a double type. You guys don't know either." Xialong Yun interrupted them impatiently. "She's a fire poison type? But what's with the double type?" Wei Haichao asked curiously. "She also has a space type. What was going on with Guozhong? Did you guys confront them head-on?" Sikong Chun said as he looked at Ho Guozhong, who was lying on the old sofa. Wei Haichao turned his head to look at Ho Guozhong, and his face immediately sank. "I didn't face him head-on, but I was attacked by Lan Lu. After being attacked by a level 8 psychic ability user, he only fainted instead of having a mental breakdown. He did not know whether this result was good or bad. In any case, both of them caused quite a bit of damage to the injured. Of course, there was a high chance that he would become an idiot when he woke up. When Sikong Chun heard that it was Lan Lu who attacked him, he immediately frowned. On the other side, after Lin Xiao finished peeling the bear's skin, he began to turn around and cut open the bear's stomach, digging out its heart, liver, intestines, and lungs. Lan Lu looked at the bloody scene, and then looked at the excited female zombie, and then looked to the side with a face that couldn't bear to look at it. "By the way, weren't you going to stop him just now? Why did you let him go so easily?" Next to Lin Xiao, there were 10 large buckets neatly placed, each filled with more than half of lake water. The dug-out liver was soaked in water, and the intestines were thrown to the side. "If I don't let him go, do I have to fight him? Kill him?" Lin Xiao calmly glanced at him while working. "You can even kill a level 8 fire bear. He is just a level 8 fire ability user. It shouldn't be difficult for you to kill him, right?" Lan Lu did not understand what she meant and asked. Thinking about her strength, Lan Lu felt a lot of pressure. The zombie emperor's strength was only at this level. Even the lightning ability user Sikong Chun could not do anything to it. Lin Xiao shook her head and said, "That's hard to say. Sikong Chun is much more cunning than the big stupid bear. Although I'm stronger than him now, I can't ignore the weapon he's carrying. It might not be difficult to defeat him, but it won't be easy to kill him. I thought that even if you did not heavily injure Sikong Chun, you would still leave that girl alive." Lan Lu shrugged. Lin Xiao looked at him and said, "Although that girl is only level 7, she is not simple. Can't you see that she is a double elemental? And one of them is very special. As she spoke, she slightly frowned and pondered. You said she is a double elemental? Lan Lu revealed a slightly surprised expression. He really did not see that the girl had a double elemental ability. Wasn't she only a metal elemental? Lin Qiao dug out the internal organs of the giant bear and began to dismember it. What's with that look in your eyes? Didn't you see how fast she was moving? How do you think she is moving? Lan Lu's eyes flashed and said, It's almost at the level of teleportation. Are you saying that her special ability is related to speed? Lin Qiao said, No, it's related to space. Space. Lan Lu pondered for a moment and immediately understood what she meant. You mean she can move through space? Entering another space and moving to another location before coming out again, it was the best ability to escape. At this time, Xiedong and the others returned. The first to return was Xiedong. There was a touch of killing intent and the smell of blood. In his hand was a level 6 energy core with the aura of a human ability user. As soon as he returned, he saw his leader dismembering the giant bear. Xiedong was already used to it. He calmly stood at the side and handed the energy core to her. Lin Qiao took out a towel and wiped her hands, then hung the towel on the side of the bucket. She took Xiedong's energy core, put it into the space, and continued to cut the meat. Oh, this is the entrance fee you were talking about. Lan Lu immediately understood that this female zombie just wanted to find a fair and just reason to kill the other's subordinates. Lin Qiao waved at Xiedong. Come help me. I will cut the big pieces. Then you cut it into smaller pieces. Then put them into the bucket. Xiedong brought Lu Mingsong and Wan Lizhong forward, took the knife that Lin Qiao threw over, and started to cut. When Chang Qingqing brought her people to Lan Lu, she saw Lin Qiao cutting up a mountain of meat. She asked in surprise, Is this the bear? Why is she cutting up this meat? Lan Lu raised his eyebrows and said, She said it's for military rations. Chang Qingqing. Humans can't eat the meat of mutant beasts. Why is it for military rations? After Xiedong, Inc. Yi Qingxian, and Old Six also came back with a level 6 energy core of a human ability user. Lan Lu waited until Lin Qiao finished cutting up the giant bear. Then he said to her, The matter I sent someone to tell you last time, has it been resolved? Lin Qiao heard this and glanced at him unhappily. Then how do you want to compensate me? Lan Lu heaved a sigh of relief in his heart when he heard this. She meant that it had been resolved. Chapter 1146. What kind of compensation do you want? Lan Lu asked calmly after hearing Lin Qiao's request. Since she had already solved the problem, it shouldn't be a big problem. As for compensation, it could be discussed. Lin Qiao divided the bear meat and put it in the bucket to soak. Then she covered the bucket and put it into the space. She looked at him and said, I helped you knock out your leader. Also, the zombies from your base are still with us. Their faces are almost back to normal. Send them back. If you add up all the rewards and compensation, just give me a grade 8 energy core. Lan Lu immediately understood and said, Oh, you want me to help you get the Black Wolf King's beast core from before, right? You're really greedy. You already have a level 8 fire attribute bear's beast core. Lin Qiao shook her head and said, No, I will find the wolf myself. You can find something else. I'm talking about energy cores. Whether it's a corpse core, a beast core, a level 8 metahuman core, or even a level 8 mutant plant core, they are all fine. No matter what it was, Lan Lu wanted to get a level 8 energy core, so he had to do it himself. Or find another way to get one. Of course, if his leader could recover his strength in a short period of time after waking up, he could get one for him. But that was impossible. Not to mention Dong Xiaowei, who had been crazy for a few months, would wake up. Even if he did wake up, it would take time for his energy to recover. So Lan Lu had to go out and hunt by himself. Lin Qiao put away the bear meat bucket and waved to Lan Lu. Okay, your problem is solved. I won't continue with you. You should hurry up and bring the people back. After she finished speaking, she waved to her subordinates, turned around and flashed towards the direction of the Black Wolf's aura from afar. Chong Qingqing watched as Lin Xiao led her men away. She couldn't help but ask Lan Lu, is she really going to chase that wolf? She has been running for so long. Can she catch up? Lan Lu turned around and said, I think any prey that she has set her eyes on will not be able to escape, because she is now the zombie emperor. After saying that, he leaped up and disappeared with his leader. Chong Qingqing glanced in the direction that Lin Xiao and his men had left, then disappeared as well. Just as they were about to split up and leave, the entire forest suddenly trembled. A gray gas began to rise from the ground, and the mutated insects in the forest began to clamor as they climbed up the trees. Not long after Lin Xiao left, he suddenly stopped on a tree and raised his hand to stop the zombies. She looked down at the ground and squinted her eyes for a few seconds. Then he raised his head and looked at the sky. Xie Dong and the others stopped on the other trees behind her. Everyone looked at Lin Xiao silently and didn't say anything to disturb her. Lin Xiao silently watched for a while before lowering his head to look at the dense forest in front of him. A trace of seriousness flashed in his eyes as he said, I have a bad feeling. Xie Dong and the others looked at each other. He didn't quite understand the meaning behind Lin Xiao's words, but he knew that she must have her reasons. Moreover, Lin Xiao's tone was unusually cautious, which made them have no choice but to be cautious. In addition to Lin Xiao, Mo Yen, who was killing a level 5 lightning-type mutant fox, also suddenly stopped. He looked up at the sky, and a faint purple light flashed in his eyes. Mo Yen suddenly stopped attacking, and the lightning-type mutant fox immediately seized the opportunity to escape. But before it could even run for 2 meters, it was pounced on by a white figure. Then, before it could finish screaming, a claw penetrated its head and took out the amethyst beast core. The female zombie in the white dress walked to Mo Yen and handed the beast core to him. Mo Yen lowered his head, looked at her, and raised his hand to take it. Then, he found a clean place to sit down and began to absorb the energy of the beast core. The female zombie was standing next to him. She stood on a rock and raised her hand to stroke her soft long hair while paying attention to the surrounding movements. She didn't want to miss a trace of abnormality. Mo Yen finished absorbing the level 5 beast core in less than half an hour. He patted the powder in his hand and took the female zombie to the highest mountain nearby. Then he brought the female zombie to the highest peak nearby and quickly reached the peak. Standing on the top of the mountain, Mo Yen squinted his eyes and looked around at the forest in the distance. Actually, he wasn't far from Lin Xiao. Although Lin Xiao let him go and hunt for the beast core to increase his strength, Mo Yen was following her from afar. After staring for a while, Mo Yen began to feel that there was an unusual aura coming from several directions. It carried an ominous sense of danger and mystery that was quickly spreading. Something strange had appeared. Mo Yen felt that if this aura could make him, a level 8 zombie emperor, feel threatened, it was definitely not something simple. He looked at Lin Xiao's direction, and felt that Lin Xiao should be able to feel this unusual aura just like him. And in the direction that Mo Yen and Lin Xiao were looking at, there was a valley about 100 kilometers away. The originally dry river had many cracks, and there was a strange aura coming out from the cracks. This river had been dry for a long time, and the surface of the river was cracked. The widest part of the crack was 4 to 5 meters wide, and the narrowest part was 2 to 3 meters wide. Puff dash, a strange claw came out from the crack and fiercely dug into the ground. Galoo dash, a strange head slowly rose up, and its mouth made a strange gurgling sound. Then the other claw pounced on him, and the round-headed thing slowly climbed up. This thing's head was round, and it was as big as a washbasin. However, its head was densely packed with eyes, and many of them were blinking. The body that climbed out was very slender, and there were no legs at the back. A round head, 2 front claws, and a body that was as thick as a bucket. It was as flat as a leech, and its body was about 3 to 4 meters long. After this multi-eyed beast climbed up, it looked around with its eyes, and then opened its mouth, revealing a mouthful of sharp teeth. Galoo dash, it used its 2 front claws that were as thick as an adult's thighs to run to the left, and after a while it ran back to the right, and after a while it ran back. Then this time, it suddenly crawled to the edge of the crack and poked its head down. Gloo dash, gloo dash. Then countless gurgling sounds came from the depths of the crack. Not long after, countless round-headed, multi-eyed, and big-mouthed monsters climbed up. The surrounding area was also filled with the gurgling sound. As more and more monsters climbed out, the sound became louder and louder, and it began to spread in all directions. Chapter 1147. Lin Xiao stood in the same place and carefully sensed the strange and ominous aura. She thought about it and decided to take a look, because the aura gave her a bad feeling, as if something terrible had appeared. She decided to give up on the black wolf and decided to see what the source of the aura was all about. She would come back to find the black wolf after she figured it out. Follow me. Hurry up. After Lin Xiao gave the order, her figure immediately disappeared from where she stood. Xiedong and the others immediately followed her aura at full speed. Lin Xiao's figure quickly shuttled through the treetops and hilltops, constantly moving in the direction of the aura. Soon, the group of level 5 and 6 zombies behind her disappeared. Other than a few wind-type zombies that were slightly faster, the others couldn't keep up with Lin Xiao's speed as a level 8 zombie. It only took Lin Xiao 10 minutes to cover a distance of hundreds of kilometers. She stood on the tallest tree on the hilltop and frowned as she looked at the dry river at the bottom of the hill. The river and its surroundings were filled with disgusting-looking monsters. What the hell are those eyes on their heads? Are there so many of them for seeing things? And that body, is it a mutation of a leech or a mutation of a slug? With those two claws, they either don't grow anymore or grow four. Just the two in front look deformed and disabled. Lin Xiao couldn't help but cover her eyes and turn her head to the side with a face full of disgust. Don't you know that the appearance of these things is so ugly that it hurts your eyes? Especially those eyes. Trypophobia is about to break out. Looking at the number and aura of those things, although they weren't big, their aura was very scary. The smallest one had a strong aura of a level 6 mutated beast, and the biggest ones were actually about level 8. Their numbers were a little unbelievable. Just as Lin Xiao covered her eyes and turned her head, the monsters in the hill suddenly stopped moving and turned their heads to look at the hilltop where Lin Xiao was. Lin Xiao's heart skipped a beat and she immediately looked back. She saw that those things were staring at her motionlessly. A sense of crisis that was locked on made Lin Xiao feel a little depressed. Her hilltop was not far from the hill, only 7 or 8 kilometers away. Therefore, it was easy for those things to discover her aura, which was why they looked over. Moreover, no matter how big or small these things were, they didn't seem to be afraid of Lin Xiao's level 8 zombie emperor aura. All the plants around them began to wither and turn black. The leaves and grass were all gone, and the branches were dry and black. It was like a patch of blackness was spreading out from the call bit by bit. There were also many corpses of mutant beasts lying on the ground, which were devoured by these monsters. Moreover, the blackened corpses of the mutated beasts emitted a rotten stench, yet these many-eyed beasts devoured them with gusto. Lin Xiao's eyes stung, but he still had to observe the situation of these monsters. Wherever they went, everything on the ground would turn black. Moreover, there was a gas that drifted in the air, and when the mutated beasts in the distance caught a whiff of it, they immediately collapsed. Those low-level mutant beasts did not seem to be able to sense the approaching danger. Only the higher-level ones were able to sense it, and immediately left cautiously. After more than half an hour, Xiedong and the others finally appeared beside Lin Xiao. At this time, the situation at the call had become very obvious, so when the zombies came over, they saw those things. Fuck! What are these things? They're so ugly. Yan Xiao was the first to let out a strange cry. Then, he forced his facial features to distort as he sized up those things. Then he was shocked to the point that he couldn't describe it with words. Jing Yan's face was calm, and she stared at those monsters seriously. Then she pointed at the crack in the river and said, "They're crawling out from the ground again. Why are there so many monsters crawling out after the apocalypse?" Although Xiedong and the other male zombies didn't have such an exaggerated reaction because of the appearance of those things, their mouths and eyes were all twitching. Only Old Six saw the densely packed eyes on the heads of those monsters, and immediately turned his back to them. Fuck! It's giving me goosebumps. What the hell are these things? They're so disgusting. Yi Qingxian looked at him with a funny smile, and then patted his shoulder. Brother, don't tell me you have the legendary trypophobia. Ha ha ha, this is fun. Old Six. Although he didn't want to admit it, he did have it. What is this? Xiaodong frowned as he looked at the ground in that area which had already turned black. There was no sign of life, and it was filled with a deathly aura. It seemed like it was caused by these monsters. Lin Xiao shook his head. I don't know him, but from what I've observed, these things are harder to deal with than the underground gorillas in our base. They like to eat rotting corpses, and their bodies carry a highly toxic gas that is spreading everywhere. There are quite a lot of them. If they move around, the entire northwestern region will suffer, Xiaodong said worriedly. At this time, Lin Xiao turned his head to look at other directions, east, west, north, and south. After he stopped, he crossed his arms in front of his chest and rubbed his chin. He said with uncertainty, if my feeling is not wrong, this is not the only place where monsters might appear. After seeing these things, her ominous premonition became even stronger. But it gave her the feeling that it wasn't just here. Hearing what she said, not only did Xiaodong look at her in shock, but the others also looked at Lin Xiao. Ah, no way. There are these things in other places. Yan Xiao felt that her whole zombie body was in trouble. If it was just here, then it was so far away from their base. These things shouldn't be able to cover all of China. But Lin Xiao's words interrupted her fantasy. Looking at the number of monsters in front of her, they were still climbing up from the ground. On the ground, they had already covered the entire call, and they were everywhere. Thinking about it, if the whole world was filled with these things, she would rather face the faces of those zombies. Hearing Yan Zhao's words, Jing Yan, Old Five, Lu Li, and the other female zombies felt an inexplicable chill on their skin. Old Six also slapped his forehead and quickly swatted out the densely packed eyes in his head. Lin Xiao thought about it and said, it's hard to say. Maybe they are different species. For example, the underground gorillas look different from these things. Compared to these things in front of them, the underground gorillas were much better looking. Chapter 1148. Although their attributes were different, Lin Xiao could still smell an aura similar to that of De Zhuang and the rest of the monsters. De Zhuang was afraid of sunlight, but not these things. Fortunately, these multi-eyed monsters did not go too far. Most of them stayed in the call, piling up into a pile. Only a small part of them spread out, as if they were hunting or circling their territory. All the birds and beasts in the surroundings fled the area in a disorderly manner. Some of the birds even dropped to the ground halfway through their flight. However, although they did not move in a large area, the plants on the surrounding hills had mysteriously withered and turned black. Soon, it would spread to the hill where Lin Xiao and the rest of the zombies were. A strong corrosive aura came, and Lin Xiao immediately frowned and ordered them to retreat. Get out of here! The zombies immediately retreated, and Lin Xiao was the last to leave. When they landed on another hill, they saw that the hill they were at was slowly covered by a layer of black, and the plants on it had also withered. Fortunately, this change was gradually controlled within a certain range. The area that was as far as 10 kilometers away from the call was fine, while the vegetation and land within 10 kilometers were dyed black. Tisk, even the zombies are being corroded. The range of these things is a dead zone. Yi Qingxian, who was standing on a tree behind Lin Xiao, looked at the black area that seemed to have been polluted, and could not help but exclaim. Not to mention the plants and animals, even the zombie beasts did not escape the same fate as the other living mutant beasts. The zombie beasts were even worse off because their reaction was slower than the mutant beasts. By the time they felt it, their bodies could no longer move. Looking at the zombie beasts that were dragged away by the multi-eyed monsters, the zombies felt an inexplicable sense of crisis. The aura that these monsters emit is very corrosive, and it corrodes everything it touches, Lin Xiao said. If these things keep moving around, the entire Northwest will not be able to hold on for more than a few years. Xie Dong, who was standing on a rock on the other side, also looked at the ominous black area with a serious expression. These things should not be moving around in a large area, right? That's not good. Speaking of which, is there anything that can cure these things? When Yan Xiao heard what they said, she felt goosebumps all over her body. Lin Xiao took a look and shook his head. We'll have to continue observing them. Look at their legs. It doesn't look like they're going to run around. Continue observing? Are we staying? Yan Xiao asked doubtfully. Why should we stay? Whose territory is this? Someone must be here to observe. Yi Qingxian said. Lin Xiao nodded. That's right. Tell Lan Lu about the situation when we get back and ask him to pay attention to the situation here. She then turned around and said, Let's go and catch that wolf. They've all run away. Perhaps it was because of this aura. Many of the high-level mutated beasts within a 100-mile radius ran away, not to mention the level 8 wolf. He had already slipped away after smelling the scent. Now, he had slipped far away from Lin Xiao. However, he still couldn't hide from Lin Xiao's energy aura. He could still sense the direction and position. As soon as Lin Xiao moved, the other zombies immediately followed and left. On the other side of a mountain more than 100 kilometers away, a completely bald black wolf stood on a huge rock. It turned its head and looked in the direction of Lin Xiao's side. After looking for a while, it looked up to the sky and howled, "Awa, awa." The surrounding wolves also howled. After the black wolf stopped howling, it turned around and was about to leave. Suddenly, a black fire dragon descended from the sky and fiercely pounced towards it. "Awa!" The black wolf was startled. It jumped up and at the same time, it waved its claws and scattered a white icicle towards the black dragon. After the black dragon and the white icicle collided, it immediately turned into an icy gray dragon and fell from the sky. Pong! It fell into pieces. Then, the shattered ice quickly melted and the black flame within the ice immediately ignited. In the blink of an eye, it rose again. Awa! Seeing the familiar scent of the black flame, the black wolf's fur immediately stood up. Of course, there wasn't much fur left on its body. Only its head, neck, limbs, and tail had fur. Its body was already bald from the fight with the giant bear. So, the fur that stood up now was only on its neck and tail. Seeing the black wolf king roar, the other wolves immediately scattered and ran away. At this moment, a huge black snake suddenly slid down from the tree next to it. It rushed towards the back of a level 6 gray wolf and bit it. Awa! The gray wolf's body was slightly smaller than the black wolf king, but it was very vigilant. After the big black snake rushed out, it fiercely turned its head and glanced at it. Then it quickly reacted and quickly jumped away. It landed on the ground on the other side and its fur stood up. It bared its teeth and roared at the big black snake. Awu! 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 A strange dog barked, and a figure as black as the Black Wolf King also rushed into the pack of wolves, biting left and right at the wolves that were fleeing in all directions. One moment it would pounce on a wolf's butt. The next moment it would turn its head and pounce on another giant wolf next to it, biting its hind leg and dragging it back. Awu! Awu! The mutated wolves that were bitten by it cried out in pain. Then, they turned their heads angrily and pounced on the big black dog that suddenly appeared. Awu! 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 The big black dog saw a few wolves pouncing on it. It immediately screamed and turned its head to run. Then, the few level 5 and 6 mutated beasts chased it with all their might. The big black snake coiled itself into a ball and confronted the gray wolf. It also had to pay attention to the attacks of the other wolves around it. However, it wasn't worried at all. It calmly tested the gray wolf. From time to time, it would quickly extend its head to bite it and then retract its head. Both of them were level 6 mutated beasts. However, the big black snake's body was much bigger than the gray wolf. It looked very dangerous. The gray wolf didn't dare to relax and kept its eyes fixed on the big snake. At the periphery of the wolf pack, a level 5 gray wolf was running when it suddenly fell into a pit. Then, countless strange tentacles wrapped around its body. Awu! The level 5 gray wolf was scared and struggled violently. However, it found that the tentacles wrapped around its body were very strong. No matter how much it struggled, it couldn't break free. Just as the gray wolf was struggling, the sharp tips of the tentacles suddenly pierced into the gray wolf's body. "Awoo!" The gray wolf cried out in pain. More than a dozen figures flashed out and chased after the level 5 and 6 mutated wolves. Because of Lin Xiao's aura, the entire wolf pack was in chaos. The Black Wolf King didn't have time to care about them because it was being targeted by Lin Xiao. Chapter 1149. He Lang spread his limbs and lowered his head. He glared at Lin Xiao with a pair of ferocious wolf eyes. The fur on his neck exploded as he bared his teeth at Lin Xiao and let out a low growl. Woah dash! It didn't expect the zombie human to chase after it. It seemed like it was coming for it. Lin Xiao stood steadily on a nearby tree, waving his hand to control the black flames surrounding the black wolf. The black wolf narrowed its eyes and stared at Lin Xiao. From the time when they were in the miasma forest, the black wolf felt that this human in front of him had the strength to threaten him. Although her aura level was the same as his, black wolf instinctively sensed danger from her. That was why it was the first to slip away. It didn't expect that this human would still chase after it. The aura was clearly still there, but after a while, it suddenly disappeared and appeared here. Roar! The Black Wolf King glared at Lin Xiao and roared again. Then, it flashed its claws and leaped towards the tree where Lin Xiao was. Lin Xiao leaped up and with a wave of his hand, a black flame flew in front of He Lang. Black Wolf opened its mouth and spat out an icy mist, which once again froze Lin Xiao's black flames into pieces. Before the ice fell, Black Wolf jumped over it, stepped on it and jumped again. However, Lin Xiao had already disappeared. Roar! The Black Wolf King landed on the tree where Lin Xiao was. It stopped and looked around carefully, searching for traces of Lin Xiao. Lin Xiao slowly flashed behind the Black Wolf King and prepared to strike it from behind. Awoo! Awoo! At this moment, a large black dog suddenly barked and rushed out, running wildly under the Black Wolf King tree. Behind it was a large pack of over 10 level 5 to level 6 mutated wolves. Howl, 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 howl. The pack of wolves bared their fangs and glared at the large black dog. They looked as if they wanted nothing more than to pounce onto the large black dog's neck and fling it a few times. After the wolves chased after them, Lin Xiao looked at the wounds on the wolves' buttocks that had their fur bitten off. The Black Wolf King stood on the tree and looked down at the huge dog and wolf pack. Where did this stupid dog come from? Was it a joke? If it wasn't worried about Lin Xiao hiding in the surroundings, the Black Wolf King would have pounced on the stupid dog and crushed its head. Awoo woof, awoo woof. The large black dog ran very quickly. After putting some distance between itself and the pack of wolves, it even turned around and barked at the wolves behind it in a provocative manner. After pulling away from the wolf pack, it turned around and taunted. Roar! All the wolves were immediately enraged by this action. They roared even louder and chased after it. Awoo! The Black Wolf King and the wolf pack were furious. Lin Xiao and the Black Wolf King quietly looked at the dog. Lin Xiao wanted to go over and kick the dogs, but the Black Wolf King was very angry at the dog's actions of playing with the wolves. King of the Black Dog. Couldn't of and a of a and it too. Just as the Black Wolf King was angrily baring its big white teeth, Lin Xiao suddenly appeared behind the Black Wolf King. He waved his claws and stabbed at the Black Wolf King's back. Awoo! The Black Wolf King was prepared. It reacted the moment Lin Xiao appeared. With a sway of his body, he landed on a tree branch on the other side and roared fiercely at Lin Xiao. Lin Xiao's claw hit its black shadow, but it missed. She turned around and landed on the ground. With a tap of her toes, she charged toward the Black Wolf King in the blink of an eye. When Lin Xiao's toes touched the ground, the Black Wolf King waved its claws and shot a wave of sharp icicles. With a wave of Lin Xiao's hand, a black fire dragon suddenly jumped out and crashed into the icicles. Bang! The icicles fell to the ground with a loud bang. Lin Xiao passed through the ice formation and swung her claws at the Wolf King. Puffed. A woo. The Black Wolf King already had a few claw wounds on its body. Now Lin Xiao's claws cut a few more. He immediately let out a pained howl and shrank his body before instantly fleeing far away. A woo. It landed on a small hill 200 meters away from Lin Xiao. The Black Wolf King lowered its limbs and nervously looked in Lin Xiao's direction. Lin Xiao's figure flashed and disappeared. She turned invisible and stealthily sneaked toward the Black Wolf King. But before she could get close to the Black Wolf King, she heard a familiar dog barking. A woo. A woo. The Black Wolf King's mental power was focused on Lin Xiao. It didn't know how this mad dog suddenly appeared next to it. But when its noble butt was bitten, the Black Wolf King immediately exploded. It didn't care if Lin Xiao's life was in danger. It jumped up, turned its head, and madly pounced toward the big black wolf. It quickly joined the pack of wolves chasing the dog. A woo! I'm going to bite you to death, you bastard. You actually dared to bite my butt. Woof, woof, woof. Seeing the Black Wolf King suddenly chase over, Wang realized that it had bitten an enemy it shouldn't have bitten. It immediately ran away with all its might, hoping that its master would quickly come and save it. Couldn't defeat a level 8 mutated beast. Lin Xiao had just flashed to the Black Wolf King's side, but before she could do anything, Wang interrupted her plan. She stood on the hillside and quietly watched the Black Wolf King chase the zombie dog. Then, she looked at the Black Wolf King that was desperately chasing the zombie dogs, but to bite it. What should I do if I don't want to save it? But it's still my dog, isn't it? Wouldn't it be too heartless if I don't save it? Why does it always drag me down after I save it? At this time, in the depths of the ground, there was a huge black space with a chasm. The space was very big, at least 1,000 meters high, and there were many kinds of black plants growing on the ground. These plants were very tall and thick, and their leaves were also very large. But they were all black as ink. The space was very big and boundless. Apart from these strange plants, there were also many underground rivers. The river water was also pitch black, and it looked very strange. However, there were creatures swimming in the river, indicating that it wasn't a dead river. Boom, boom, boom. A series of trembling sounds came from the space. It sounded like there was a large object moving. Sensing the movement of the sound, the creatures in the Blackwater River immediately sank, and the surface of the river returned to silence. Boom, boom, boom. The sound gradually approached, and after a while it gradually faded away. After the sound disappeared, the calm surface of the river began to surge again. A few shadows appeared, and then sank down again. This was the depths of the Earth's core, so no one above 10,000 meters above the ground knew what was happening here. Only the creatures here were in an abnormally tense state. Chapter 1150. On the ground, Wang was being chased by the Black Wolf King. From time to time, he had to avoid being outflanked by other wolves. The Black Wolf King took advantage of the time when he was dodging an attack from a level 6 mutated wolf to suddenly pounce on him. A woo! This time, Wang didn't have time to dodge. He was immediately pressed to the ground by the Black Wolf King. After sensing danger, Wang's hair finally stood on end. He turned his head and howled, "A woo!" He kept using his claws to block the Black Wolf King's white teeth or claws to scratch its face. At the same time, he didn't forget to kick the Black Wolf King's crotch with his hind legs. A woo! The Black Wolf King bared its white teeth and tried to bite Wang's neck. However, Wang accurately pushed them away with its front claws. Lin Xiao's figure flashed and appeared in midair behind the Black Wolf King. He waved his hand and several claws slashed down. At the same time, a large amount of black fire surged out of his palm and spread out to cover the Black Wolf King. A woo! The Black Wolf King heard the sound of the claws cutting through the air. Having suffered a loss before, it immediately jumped away in alarm. However, this jump made it land on the cover of Lin Xiao's black fire. As the black fire's devouring energy approached, the Black Wolf King immediately created a thick layer of ice to cover its body. It kicked its leg in midair, twisted its body, and dashed into the forest at the side. Lin Xiao grabbed the air, and the black fire in the air immediately soared up and wrapped around the ice wolf. A woo! The black wolf king immediately lost its balance after being wrapped. It hit the ground and rolled a few times. Then, it began to struggle and release a large amount of energy from its body. It hoped to use this to push open the devouring energy in Lin Xiao's black fire. However, the more energy it released, the more energy the black fire absorbed. Instead, it became stronger and stronger, and the devouring power increased. Lin Xiao stood in midair with a small lump of black fire under his feet. He used both hands to control the flames that wrapped around the Black Wolf King's body to devour the energy of the Black Wolf King. It even began to melt the ice on the surface of its body. Awoo! The Black Wolf King rolled on the ground and struggled. One moment it jumped to hit a rock, and the next moment it flew to hit a tree. He had completely lost his sense of direction and vision. As for the other wolf packs, other than a few level 7 mutated wolves that ran away early, the zombies killed a lot of level 5 and 6 mutated wolves and brought back their beast cores. The rest of the wolves had long since disappeared. Lin Xiao controlled black fire to trap the Black Wolf King. There were no other rank 8 metahumans around to disturb her. Therefore, the Black Wolf King could only be trapped by Lin Xiao until its energy was exhausted and it died. Without the Black Wolf King's attacks, Wang managed to sneak away from a dozen big gray wolves. There were also some who didn't react as quickly and stared at Wang. A few of the sharper ones suddenly realized that their own kind had disappeared, and their leader was now trapped. They immediately stopped chasing after Wang. Their eyes flashed, and they swiftly turned around and fled in a direction where there was no one around. At this time, the big black snake was using its body to tightly wrap around a 2-meter-long big gray wolf that was covered in ice like the Black Wolf King. Its big mouth was tightly biting into the big gray wolf's neck. The ice that was bitten by the big black snake had already shattered. The snake's cold eyes were flashing with killing intent. No matter how the big gray wolf king struggled, or how it spat out ice mist to freeze it to death, or how it used its claws to scratch, the big black snake did not loosen its grip. Although the big black snake had completely restrained the big black snake, there were many more wounds on its body. Some were scratched by claws, some were stuck by ice, and some were still stuck in the snake's body. Not far from them was the corpse of a level 6 big gray wolf. Its body was somewhat unnaturally twisted and lifeless. At this time, a big mushroom slowly moved its roots to the side of the wolf corpse. It looked at the wolf corpse and then at the big black snake. It looked at the wolf corpse and then at the big black snake. Every time it looked at the big black snake, it would take a small step closer to the wolf corpse. After moving a few steps, it saw that the big black snake was still tightly strangling the level 7 mutated wolf. It immediately took a big step towards the level 6 wolf corpse and reached out with its tentacles to dig into its head. Very quickly, it took out a beast core and casually threw it on the ground. It looked at the big black snake and immediately dragged the carcass of the wolf, which was not small at all. It weighed at least 100 kilograms and quickly dragged it away into the forest at the side. The big black snake saw that it only dragged the wolf corpse away and left the beast core behind. A faint light flashed in its eyes, and then there was no reaction. The level 7 big gray wolf that it had wrapped around quickly lost the strength to struggle, because the snake venom had already taken effect. The big black snake slowly tightened its body. The strength of its body that was as thick as a water bucket was enough to crush the wolf's bones. The Black Wolf King's level 8 beast core was very rich in energy, just like the giant bear from before. Therefore, Lin Xiao used all her strength to suppress the Black Wolf King, and the time she took was not much shorter than the time she took to deal with the giant bear. When the Black Wolf King's willpower was weak, she suddenly used her claws to cut off its head. The group of zombies and the 3 pets had been resting calmly at the side for a while. They all obtained 1 level 8 beast core, 1 level 7 beast core, 8 level 6 beast cores, and 12 level 5 beast cores, a total of 22 beast cores. In addition, there was a level 8 beast core from the giant bear. This was a small part of the energy source that Lin Xiao used to increase the strength of the zombie army. It was still not enough, it was still too little. Now in the base, besides herself, Mo Yen was the only level 8 beast core. She did not know how his strength had recovered. It probably wouldn't be that fast. There were only 3 level 7 Lin Kuei, Cho Lily, and Elmar, a dozen level 6 beast cores, and 100 level 5 beast cores. If it was only according to the standard of a big base, this batch of strength was enough. However, if it was to face all the humans, then the strength of her zombie army was still not enough. It was not enough to shock the humans, not enough to make them fear. Only by making them truly feel fear and understand the difference in strength could they be forced to bear the existence of the zombie army. It was fine if they did not bear it, but at least they would not think of dealing with them every day. Lin Xiao looked at the 2 level 8 beast cores in her hand. She needed to use one to increase her strength, and the other one, she would keep it as a backup. Anyway, there would be more level 8 beast cores in the future. Maybe it was because of the battle between her and the Black Wolf King. The mutated beasts within 100 kilometers were so scared that they retracted their auras. Lin Xiao sensed for a while, but did not feel the aura of any high-level mutated beasts. She also did not plan to chase the few level 7 mutated wolves that ran away. She put the corpses of the wolves into her space, and then turned towards the direction of Lin Kuang, Sister Duan, and the others. Although the wolf meat was not that delicious, there was still some energy in the high-level wolf meat. She could soak it in the space lake to purify it, and it should taste good. The figures of the zombies also disappeared one by one. Chapter 11:51. Early in the morning, Lin Wenwen stood in front of the mirror and pinched the fat on her belly. She was speechless. "You mean you want me to help you lose weight? Why do I have to help you lose weight?" She looked at Dong Xinxin's face in the mirror and said gloomily. Dong Xinxin in her body said weakly, Since you have nothing to do, help me. I also need to get energy from this body to recover, but this body is too useless. Don't talk about energy, the garbage in the body will also affect my recovery." Lin Wenwen had nothing to say after she said that. So if she wanted to go back early, she had to help Dong Xinxin change her body's physical strength to help her recover. Only when she recovered to the point where she could control her body could she send Lin Wenwen back. What an unexpected disaster. Lin Wenwen looked at the mirror and asked curiously, "What is your ability? Why did you go back 7 years ago?" Dong Xinxin said, "I had no choice but to come back. I don't know which year I came back." Lin Wenwen heard that there should be a story behind her words, so he asked, "It seems that you didn't come back voluntarily. Can your ability travel through time? Then why did you come back?" Dong Xinxin was silent for a moment and said, "If I didn't come back, I would have died, but I really died." Lin Wenwen was stunned. "Died? You said you died and then went back 7 years ago? How did you die?" Lin Wenwen asked the last sentence subconsciously. She was a little curious. How did Dong Xinxin bring her back as well? "I was bitten to death by zombies while on a mission." Dong Xinxin replied faintly. Her death was actually because of one person. In order to save him, she used up all her energy and was injured. Finally, she encountered the bandits. Then she died in the hands of the bandits or in the hands of zombies. She and that person chose to die in the hands of zombies. But she didn't want to tell Lin Wenwen the real reason. So she just said that she was bitten to death by zombies while on a mission. Lin Wenwen listened and continued to ask, "So what does your death have to do with me? Why did you bring me back as well?" Dong Xinxin said helplessly, "I'm not too sure about that. I only remember the last moment. It was as if he saw a figure and then he didn't know anything else. When he woke up, he realized that he couldn't move. Then you took over my old body and moved around. If you don't even know how you brought me here, how do you know that you can bring me back to 7 years in the future?" Lin Wenwen asked suspiciously as he looked at the face in the mirror. "Didn't I say that your body is in my space? When I regain control of my body, I will be able to return you to your body. At that time, you will be rejected by this space-time and will automatically be sent back to 7 years later," Dong Xinxin explained. "I will be rejected by this space-time?" Don't tell me I'm going to be annihilated, Lin Wonwon said in shock. Dong Xinshin said, my ability can send you back to the space orbit, so you don't have to worry about being wiped out by this space. Lin Wonwon heaved a sigh of relief and said, that's good. That's good. Just as the two were talking in the bathroom, there was a knock on the door. Lin Wonwon wiped her face and said, your brother is here. Do you think he will believe it? Dong Xinshin's voice said softly, I've digested it all night. I believe at least 60%. Lin Wonwon turned around and walked out of the bathroom, then went to open the door. She saw Dong Lijia standing outside the door with a haggard face. Come in. Lin Wonwon moved aside to let him in. After Dong Lijia came in, he looked at her with a confused face, then walked to the sofa and sat down. After Lin Wonwon closed the door, she walked to the desk and pulled out a chair to sit down. She looked at Dong Lijia and said, do you believe it? Dong Lijia swallowed and asked, if you're not my sister, then what about my sister? What happened to her? Lin Wonwon said, she's fine. She will be back after a while. You don't have to worry about your sister's safety. Dong Lijia was slightly relieved and asked, Then what do you want me to do? Lin Wonwon rolled her eyes and asked, you know that the end is coming? What do you want to do? Sit and wait for death? Or sit and wait to become a zombie? But what if you won't die or become a zombie? The world will be in chaos during the end of the world. I don't need to tell you this. Have you seen zombie movies? Dong Lijia looked at her silently, nodded after a few seconds. I know. But you? Then what do you want to do? Lin Wonwon looked at him lazily and said, you don't need to worry about what I want to do. I won't hurt your sister anyway. If I wanted to hurt her, I wouldn't bother telling you the truth. Oh, right, I don't have money, you have to lend me some. When Dong Lijia heard the first part of her sentence, he didn't quite believe it. But the last part was a bit confusing. Borrow money? Isn't the end of the world coming? Why do you need money? And my sister has a lot of money, you should be able to use it. If money doesn't work, then wait until after the end of the world. It's not there yet. I want to buy something, don't tell me you want me to rob someone. Lin Wonwon looked at him angrily. By what? Dong Lijia asked her with a confused face. Lin Wonwon stood up. You don't need to worry about that. Just give me the money. Oh, you still have a mission, that is you go and deal with your parents, I don't care about that. Dong Lijia looked at her blankly. Ah? Tell my parents? Lin Wonwon walked towards the cloakroom and said as she walked, yes, quickly tell your parents to sell everything that can be sold, and then buy a lot of rice and mineral water to store. After the end of the world, these will be used to save lives. You now have 3 months to plan the purchase and storage. After saying that, she walked into the cloakroom, found the sportswear area, and took out a set to change. Dong Lijia still didn't quite believe Lin Wonwon, but her tone and posture, as well as her fighting skills and the gun from last night, clearly told him that he had no choice but to believe it. What if it was all true? If he didn't believe it now, then wouldn't he regret it 3 months later? If it was true, then after 3 months the world would be in chaos, zombies and viruses would be everywhere. If he didn't prepare at all, then he could really die at any time. But if it was true, then he really had to tell his family and friends. But would people think that he was a psychopath? And money, to buy a lot of rice and water within 3 months, that would definitely need money, and he also needed weapons, vehicles, and so on. After Lin Wonwon changed into a loose and extra-large sportswear, she saw that Dong Lijia's face was even more confused. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.